Hello and welcome to the Giddy Carousel of Pop, the podcast that takes an old issue of the top pop mag smash hits, usually from the 1980s, although we may slide a year or two either side of that, and has a right good rummage through its pages with a guest. I'm Simon Galloway, and he ain't humping around.
Not today, my friend.
Not today. It's Mr. Gavin No Hump Hogg.
Call me Gavin No Humps Hogg, that's right, yes.
So before we set the carousel spinning in motion, Gav, anything to report from the Carousel Coffee Kiosk?
Well, after that lovely introduction, yes, I shall report to you. We've had some coffees bought for us by lovely, generous listeners. Richard Drew, previous guest on the show and previous buyer of coffees, has been at it again, Si, buying us more coffees.
Yeah.
Like a lunatic, a lovely fella. He said, in 15 years' time, I want an Oasis-style reunion with you two. That's assuming you do have to split up first, which I don't want to happen. Oh, God, what am I saying? So he's got a bit confused there. But I think his general thing is he likes the show and he's buying us coffee. So that's very kind. Thank you, Richard. That's very nice of you.
Keep them coming.
Keep them coming, fella. And also David Bruce, who I don't think we've had any interactions with before, but David has very kindly bought us coffees too. So much obliged to you, Mr. B. Thank you very kindly. Also, while we're talking about listeners and the like, just want to say a big hello to David, who posts on Instagram as Baker's Hill. He's a regular listener to the show, and me and Lynn were down at the End of the Road Festival down in Dorset, having a cup of tea in the morning, and I just heard this voice say, Gavin Hogg from the Giddy Carousel of Pop. And I was like, what? And there he was, David. Recognised my dulcet tones wafting across the fairground. And came and said hello. We had ended up having a right old natter and lovely fella. So thanks for coming and saying hello, David. And that was one of my highlights for the festival. Took a little photo for you, didn't I?
You did.
So look, we've got a fan in the real world. It's very exciting. Felt like Damon Albarn for a moment, I did.
Although you did both look a bit like cardboard cutouts in it. I don't know if it was some sort of filter on the lens or something.
No, it was definitely us. But yeah, I know what you mean. It was a bit of an odd photo. And then in pop news, I went to see Janet Jackson in Manchester a few days ago.
Oh.
Playing. I managed to sneak backstage to get a pop exclusive. I wanted to find out if she'd ever been sick in a gum boot, and she said she had, once in 1979 and once in 1991. There you go, just letting you know about that. That's what she said. Any reviews of the podcast lately?
No, not a single one.
Like the tumbleweed is moving across the fairground, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I've not had any reviews for a while.
Oh.
Just saying.
Yeah.
That's all. You know what to do.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, so buy us a coffee if you want to. You can go to coffee.com/giddypoppod. That's ko-fi.com/giddypoppod to do that. Or leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. And just come and say hello to us on the socials. You'll find us out there. Just search for the Giddy Carousel of Pop. And
we're everywhere.
We're just everywhere. So Gav, tell us what's happening in the land of the carousel.
Well, Si, I'm disappointed to report that something feels slightly amiss with the carousel this time. We both, with our deep knowledge of the inner workings of our favourite piece of fairground equipment, take it in turns, attempting unsuccessfully to nurse it through this difficult period. Its gears are creaking, and it whispers to us, as if in a dream, Iranu, uvavu, Iranu, uvavu. What is the carousel trying to tell us? We know not, and we place an ad in the local paper, the Carousel Chronicle, asking for young types with fresh perspectives who may be able to decode these strange utterances. The only small ad responder is the podcaster Catrin Lowe, who strolls confidently up to the wayward whirligig and lays hands upon it. She announces that the reason for the general air of bafflement is because the carousel has only gone and bloody well ended up in the mid-90s. Si and I feel a bit wibbly, and Catrin kindly agrees to stick around. She offers to help us navigate this brave new world, to which we all say, Avanti! And to Catrin I say, welcome. From the smorgasbord of equestrian timber in front of your face, which one would you like to choose for your ride?
Oh, I'd like that nice lilac one that isn't unlike the one that Julie Andrews rides in Mary Poppins.
Oh, yeah, nice choice.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no one's chosen that one for quite some time. I think since we had Julie Andrews on the podcast all them years ago. So, yeah. All right, the lilac one is yours. The carousel will begin to spin, as is according to custom, upon the truthful answering of the question which I asked Janet Jackson a couple of days ago. Have you ever been sick in a gumboot?
No, I'm too ladylike. I'm only sick in ballet shoes.
Okay.
Sometimes
fair.
quite sensible Clark's loafers. So,
You don't get as much, it's not as big a container though,
well,
is
I
it?
have a very tiny mouth. I'm so ladylike.
So much more fitting for your tiny mouth. Okay. Well, upon the truthful answering of that question, the carousel begins to spin.
The carousel has spun us back to the smash hits of the 5th to the 18th of July, 1995, for God's sake. Yours for a whopping 85p. What's all that about?
That's double the price to usual, isn't it?
Yeah. But if you want to read along with us, you can do just that. Thanks to the Smash Hits Remembered website. You'll find links to the scans of this issue in the show notes for this episode, along with links to Spotify and YouTube playlists that include pretty much all the songs and artists featured in this issue of the hits. You'll also find these links on our website, giddypoppod.home.blog, and we'll post them on the social feeds as well. As previously mentioned, just search for the Giddy Carousel of Pop or at Giddy Pop Pod in social media land. So, Kat, take us back to the balmy summer of 1995. How old were you? Where were you living? What were you up to? What was a typical day in your life back then?
So I would have been coming to the end of my second year of secondary school, which was a large bilingual comprehensive on Anglesey in Menai Bridge. And I do remember this as being quite a hot summer. I was keeping a very comprehensive diary at this time. And this is the thing, you asked me to pick an edition that I owned. And so I thought it would be good to have one where I knew what was happening around this time. And during these 2 weeks, I went on my first date, I think, which was, to see one of the films that will be covered in the magazine. And, I was quite a sort of angry teenager in some ways. Like around this time, I had a poem published on the youth pages of CFAX criticising Take That fans for being too ardent, I think. Kind of, it was sort of like kind of plea to let the cooler of us music fans, just express ourselves, man, and not be hemmed in by kind of expectations. I was really charming.
I'm getting a picture of quite a serious young person.
Yes. Well, the school I was attending had quite good musical heritage and quite relevant to this period as well, because two of the Super Furry Animals a few years before me had attended my school, and Aled Jones. So there was quite a benchmark for coolness that had been set that we all had to try and reach attending that school. So maybe that was a kind of influence on how we were all thinking of ourselves as these serious musos. So
yeah. But what sort of music were you listening to then if you were a serious muso, man?
I was extremely into Prince. And I quite liked soul and R&B, and again that'll come into some of the bits of this magazine, I think, as we go through it. But it was quite eclectic. I think in that poem that I wrote that got published about the Take That fans, it ended with some kind of flourish about them getting into a state and why don't they go and listen to Regulate. And that was a reference to Warren G and Nate Dogg, Regulate. That would have been an example of something that I thought was amazing at the time.
You don't still have that poem, do you? I would love to. I would love the full magnum opus.
It'll be somewhere.
There must be a website somewhere that has got like a, all the
CFAX archive.
Stored, the CFAX archive.
It'll be too angry, I think, to be in any archive. It'll have been banned.
Yeah. Angry from Anglesey.
Yeah, exactly. How about you guys?
Yeah, so, July 1995, so I'd just come to the end of my second year at university. And this month, in fact, towards the end of this mag and before the next one came out, I went interrailing around Europe for a month with a ticket that I'd won by entering the National NME Pop Quiz. They'd done the regional rounds. They'd come to the universities around the UK, and me and a few mates got together and we went to the round in Bournemouth. That's where I was at university, and we won. So we got through to the final, which was at the garage in Highbury in Islington. and went down there. I think this was probably like April, May time. And we only went and bloody won it.
Bloody
hell, mate.
Team of 5 of us. We all got goodie bags, and I think it was just crap that was lying around the enemy office that they just stuffed into some carrier bags. Some speakers, which I've still got. A Sega Mega Drive. Don't know what happened to that. That kind of got shared around us, and then it just disappeared. So somebody probably sold that for drug money or something. And we each got an Interrail ticket, and I was the only one out of the 5 of us who actually used the ticket. The rest of the guys didn't end up using their tickets. So me and my girlfriend, she had to buy her own ticket. Yeah, we set off around Europe, and I had my reading material that I took with me was the Enemy that came out. So I think we went on a Wednesday, so I got the Enemy that day. I had a copy of Mojo magazine, and I had 3 C90s that I had special mixtapes that I'd made to get me through the month. So yeah, I made these reading and listening material last a month.
This is relevant to this period of time as well, because Before Sunrise, Richard Linklater's great film, came out, I think, in 95, and that's about, the two of them meeting, interrailing. So you were doing exactly what the cool Gen Xers were meant to be doing right at that time.
I guess so, but if you look at the photos from that, so there are only the 2 of us, so there's only ever one of us in the photo at one time, although in Salzburg, this guy came up and said, "Do you want me to take photo?" I'm like, "Oh, yes, please." Oh, you're English. It's like, yeah, it was an old couple from Blackpool, so yeah, they took our photos. That's the only photo I was together on that holiday, so the rest of the time it's just usually one or the other of us, and whoever was in the photo got to hold the bag. Just a bag of things that we were carrying around, because forgot to take a day pack. We've got big rucksacks, but didn't have a day pack. So various European supermarket carrier bags. Julius Meinl is the one that springs to mind, with the day's snacks in it and things like that. So yeah, lots of photos of me around Europe with carrier bags, basically. What about you, Gav?
So, yeah, summer 95, I'd have just finished my first year as a primary school teacher in Kirby, near Liverpool. So I'd moved to Liverpool about a year before this issue, and I'd got this job teaching 8 and 9-year-olds, yeah. So it was a good job, and I was starting to earn a bit of money for the first time in my life. I would have been 24, 25. I mean, continuing the European travel theme and the Before Sunrise theme, I was in Prague when this issue came out. Bit of a story there. That Easter 1995, I'd gone over to Prague with a couple of mates. We'd got the coach over. Ended up meeting and falling in love with this Czech girl who she'd been studying in America. She was also working as an exotic dancer out there, but was back in Prague as a viola player for the Philharmonic Orchestra. Mm-hmm. Wild scenes, crazy days. And so she came over to see me in Liverpool a month or 2 later when I was working, and she ended up coming in. I mean, now, I think any school would go, that's a bit weird, but she came into my classroom with me and spent a few days making things with the kids, and it was the 90s, it was a different time. So I went back to the Czech Republic that summer, got the coach over, and I was going to be with her for about a month. Unfortunately, what I wasn't aware of, if you imagine our relationship as being like an office block, the American boyfriend that she had assured me when we met had been escorted out of the building by security, had merely just been shoved out of fire escape for a little while, and had ended up coming back in through a ground floor window. Oh. So he was still on the scene. So I'd got the coach over there, spent about 24 hours on the London Victoria to Prague coach. She didn't even come and meet me. So I was like, this isn't a great sign, because I thought she'd be quite excited about the fact that I was coming over. And I got there and she was a little standoffish. There was a vibe, and I was like, this isn't great. Her parents didn't look very delighted that I was there either, in this little small flat in Prague. And then obviously the story unfolded, and I was like, right, so I'm here for a month. I mean, now I think I would just I'd just go home again. But I don't know, you're young, and I didn't know what else I was going to do. So I thought, well, I'm here now. So I was just kind of moping around the streets of Prague for a month, really, traipsing around. I mean, if you're going to be moping and heartbroken anywhere, I mean, yeah. Prague's quite a nice place to do it. It was nice. Probably the the key moment that I will always remember that holiday is she'd, about a week into me being there, she'd gone off for about a week and a half to tour Germany and the Netherlands with the Philharmonic Orchestra, leaving me with her parents who spoke no English whatsoever and a little brother. And then we weren't even going to be in Prague because they were gymnastic coaches and they were going down to some like sports camp in Bohemia, like in the south of Czech Republic. So I had to go with them. So they'd commandeered this. It sounded like this is true. I swear to God, this is true. They'd commandeered like this school because it was the summer holidays. So all the classrooms had been turned into dormitories. So we all had like little roll-out kind of mats for sleeping on. And during the day, I was there with all these teenagers who were younger than me, and they were doing gymnastics and, you know, stuff on the parallel bars and the rings and all that. And I'm just in the middle of this kind of foresty area, just going, what the hell am I doing here? This is insane. The food was, I mean, I was veggie then, it was before I was vegan, but I mean, if I'd have been vegan, I wouldn't have been able to eat at all. The main thing I remember most days, because of all the vegetables, there's only one thing I don't like, and it's mushy peas. And the only thing there was to eat most days was like this weird mushy pea thing with like poached eggs on top. And I'm not a fan of eggs either, so I lost a lot of weight. So I was down there for about a week with no one to speak to. I only had a Franz Kafka book with me, which like just sent me a bit over the edge, really. And the main moment I remember is one night we went to like this sports bar. There was like a local kind of football club, and they had like an outdoor sports bar. It was a lovely summer evening. And the good thing was the beer was very cheap. So I was drinking lots of beer, and they had this little spirit called Jan Bekerova, which is like a Czech thing that was like really strong but really nice, and yeah, very quaffable. So I'd had several of them, and someone spoke a little bit of English, like broken English, and said they liked Queen. So I decided, after having had a few drinks, that what all of these people who I didn't really know really would like would be for me to stand on the table and completely unprompted sing Bohemian Rhapsody to them all. And the full version with guitar solo and everything, you know. So yeah, that was that. And then the next thing I remember was waking up in the urinals, like waking up with my face on the floor in the gents, and then staggering back to the dormitory in the classroom. So it was it was an odd summer. Let's say it was an odd summer.
It sounds like a Netflix series.
It does, yeah.
I want to watch this. I mean, not that I want to revel in your misery, but this is, yeah.
It was quite an adventure. Yeah. So that's what I was doing this time.
Okay, I'm just going to go home now. And I guess we have to address the issue, don't we? Because it's summer 1995, the height of Britpop.
Yeah.
And all that sort of thing. I mean, Gav, where do you stand on Britpop? I mean, what did you enjoy some of those things at the time?
Oh, yeah,
those
very
things
much,
stayed with you?
Very much so. I mean, I suppose I liked it. Do you remember, like, just before Britpop, Select had kind of ushered in the era a little bit with Lion, was it called Lion Rock or Lion Pop? I think they'd had a thing about denim and the auteurs and suede. So it was the same kind of idea, but it was really before sort of Oasis and Blur had become really established. And I liked that stuff because it was a bit more kind of outsidery.
Yeah.
Having said that, I did enjoy those first few Oasis albums, and I really liked Part Life and the first kind of 3 or 4 Blur albums a lot. Pulp I loved to bits, and yeah, I was really enjoying Suede a lot. So there was a lot that I did enjoy. I guess at this point it still hadn't become. It was big, but it didn't feel like it was saturating everything and sucking the life out of everything else. And it was before it had become too lumpen. You know, it felt like there was still some creativity and some interesting ideas in it. But I think as time went on, it just became like ever decreasing circles, didn't it? For me, anyway. I don't know how you feel. Catrin, you're nodding your head.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how you felt?
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult thing to group together all of those bands into sort of one genre, in the sense that a band like Pulp, who I absolutely loved, feels so different in my head to like a band like Cast or Cooler Shaker or so, just so different. It's just that they're both, I don't know, predominantly using guitars, and it's just a it's a strange thing to group together. And also Suede would have been so different as well to some of those bands that came later on. Bands like Space and things would have been so... It's a tricky thing to talk about in terms of it all being under one umbrella. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that kind of leading up to Britpop and with Denim, Pulp, Suede, there was a bit more ambiguity about it in terms of, you know, how they presented themselves. They weren't masculine, weren't they? It wasn't like, it was more kind of like an indie famous sort of thing. Rather than like the lads culture thing that I think it became, which probably more happened the following year, I would guess, with Three Lions and how football culture and music culture just kind of came together at that point. And then, lad culture and ladettes and all that sort of stuff. But we'll only touch on that briefly in this issue of Smash Hits. But I thought it was important to kind of maybe have a little bit of that discussion, because it's something that, how it was covered at the time, Britpop was certainly covered disproportionately to music that was actually in the charts. So Britpop doesn't, that music doesn't represent what was popular then. And it seems to be the narrative that we get now is that it was everywhere, and it was everywhere because it was being reported everywhere. There was like a reporting bias towards that and away from particularly like Black American music, dance music, particularly like Europe and stuff. And that was all kind of just shunned as not being real music.
Yeah.
Because these lads with guitars
Keeping
were real,
they were
real music. And that, and I did have a problem with that at the time. But also living in Bournemouth, none of these bands came to play. I mean, I think Oasis and Blur played on the same night. Oasis at the Bournemouth International Centre, the BIC, which normally hosted people like Cliff Richard and Leo Sayer, and Blur were playing on the on Bournemouth Pier.
Okay.
And the only vaguely Britpop band that came to play at the university was Menswear.
Did you see them?
Yes, they came twice, because the first time the singer he got a sore throat, couldn't sing, he only managed a couple of songs, and so the rest of the band just took over, and I think Heavy Stereo were supporting, and so they came back a couple of months later. But I think it was more like, how does this band perform out of London, rather than we're going on a big tour sort of thing. It's like, where can we go where it's not going to get much coverage? Let's go to Bournemouth. I mean, Bournemouth was very much, back then anyway, it was very much a dance town in terms of student culture. It was lots of clubs and not very much of its own music scene, and what music scene was there was kind of 10 years out of date.
I mean, I think the way some of the stuff that's linked to that lad culture thing is represented in this edition of Smash Hits is really interesting, because if you think about the fact that a lot of the people that were buying Smash Hits would have been teenage girls like myself, they're quite cleverly homing in on some of the things that were linked to that side of stuff, but weren't being aggressive or alienating women, in the sense that, they know that we'll buy an edition if it's got heavy Jarvis content in it. And also Vic and Bob, I think even though they're not music, they are kind of linked to that sort of part of culture, because they're a comedy, they were guys, they were sort of pub culture, I suppose, would have been part of their appeal. And they know that by putting them on the cover, a lot of girls are going to like them as well. And they kind of represented something that someone like Oasis might not have done at the time.
So, as Kat has said, the first thing we notice is we haven't got musicians on the front cover. We've got Vic and Bob, who say, "Come with us, why don't you, on a journey through pop." What else have we got on here? We've got Shane and Angel's Wedding. You could be there. Again, a non-pop music reference. A few new things here that Si and I just are not used to seeing at all. For example, there's a free 12-page songword book. What's going on there, Si? What the jiggins is happening there? Pop Bible. And 10 exclusive posters, so that's advertised on the front.
So is that new then? Tell me about the...
Well, it's new to us, the Pop Bible.
Yeah, I think, around this time that, the lyrics were kind of like, rather than being dotted throughout the mag, all just like ushered into one place.
Yeah, it was put in a handy cut out and keep supplement.
Yeah,
The Pop Bible.
I thought I was just keeping it out of the way. A bit like Top of the Pops used to do at the time. When it got to the top 40, there wasn't anybody counting it down anymore. It was just some captions across the bottom of the screen because the top 40 was getting in the way. And I do get the feeling that the song lyrics were probably getting in the way.
Right.
Yeah.
A bit of, all the gossip features and showbiz and whatnot that's going on in there.
And it says, in fact, it says across the top, there's a banner on the top left saying all new Smash Hits. So it's obviously had a fairly recent rebrand. We've got Blur. There's a report from Mile End. Gossip and Pictures.
Gossip,
yeah. And then on the right-hand side, there's some of the other features. We've got Emanate, D-Ream, Lily Savage, Jarvis Cocker, Tony Mortimer, and Batman Verdict. Which I think isn't a court case. I think it's like a review of the film, I'm presuming. Yeah, there's heavy Batman content in this issue, isn't it?
yeah.
Of course, I do like that picture of Vic and Bob on the front. It's a lovely image, that, isn't it?
Yeah, you guys are warming to the 90s now.
Well, slowly. It's a good pick. I do like that. But yeah, lots of new things that we're not used to seeing on the front, because generally it's a pop star and all the stuff on the front is about music, and there's a lot that isn't about music on here, like Lily Savage and the Gossip and so on. But
Shane and Angel.
Yeah, and Shane and Angel.
And tell me, would it have been quite unusual to have two people as old as Vic and Bob on the cover? Because I think they're probably in their 30s at this point, aren't they?
Yeah, they probably would have been. Back in the 80s, I suppose most of the cover stars would have been in the 20s, wouldn't they? Yeah, so yeah, probably a little unusual.
Yeah.
But then Jarvis Cocker is in his early 30s at this point, so there is this thing of people who've kind of been slogging away at it over a good number of years, finally breaking through in the early to mid 90s, and they become part of the pop culture at the time. So I think certainly Vic and Bob part of the pop culture, wider pop culture. But yeah, because alternative comedy through the 80s had kind of become. It had been featured in Smash Hits. The young ones had been on the cover a couple of times. But there's other things creeping in here, which we'll touch on as we go through the mag. Because you can't even call it a contents page, can you? when you open up the mag.
No, it's all kind of spread out, isn't it?
So contents is now called Access All Areas,
and it's very photo heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, very photo heavy. We get a letter from the editor, who at this point is Mark Frith, who says, "Congratulations on yet again having the good taste to purchase the world's finest magazine, Smash Hits. While everyone else is bringing you diddy little posters, we are, of course, bringing you this stunningly huge pull-out poster of Boyzone and Batman Forever." And it kind of goes on. He just kind of sells the mag to you, and nothing more than that. And then we do get essentially what's on the front, but with page numbers
and pictures.
And pictures. But it doesn't actually say that it's contents or anything like that, so it's like a photo montage thing, which then just slides into what appears to be the first feature, which is Gotcha. Kat, is this, this era of Smash Hits, when you look at this one, you've got the actual magazine there. Does this all look familiar to you? Because this feels very strange to me and Gav, I have to say.
Well, this was the thing. When you asked me to pick one, I thought that I might pick the first one that I bought, which was in 1992. But then when I had a look at it, it had Kylie on the front, and it was just so sort of soap celebrity heavy and so light on music that the reason why I sort of went forward a little bit in the 90s to it, this would have been one of the final editions I owned, I think, was because there was just so much of this stuff that you've got in this Gotcha spread, where it becomes much more like, the rise of something like Heat magazine was going to...
Yeah, it's like that paparazzi culture almost.
Yes.
What's happening on the red carpet or celebs out and about around town.
Yeah,
being
exactly.
snapped without their consent.
Completely. And it's a strange thing to have taken sort of like such centre stage. I wouldn't have had much interest in this at the time, I don't think.
Let's just run through some of the celebs that are on this page. We've got Sharon Stone on the Raz, pre-pop Natalie Imbruglia launching a new pizza firm, Who's that? Drew Barrymore and her boyfriend Eric, the guitarist from Hole. And then we've got Cameron Diaz and Ice-T, Jim Carrey, and who's that? David Hasselhoff with Big Bird, Chris Evans and Steve Wright from Radio 1, and the Boyzone who run through this this issue like letters through Blackpool Rock. You can't get they're the new UB40.
They are.
Boy Bloody Zone. That doesn't quite work, but it'd be Bloody Boyzone.
It feels right that there's an appearance by Chris Evans here, because a lot of what I would have been hearing would have been on his breakfast show before I went to school every morning. So he was a big figure at this time.
He was massive, wasn't he, at this time? Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess TFI Friday was on around this time as well, wasn't it?
I think it started a little bit
or a little later. Okay,
beginning of '96, maybe.
Yeah, but he was a big figure. I mean, I used to listen on my way driving to school as a teacher. It was always Chris Evans on the car radio and stuff. And I think in those days it must have had, I don't know what the listening figures were, but it must have been absolutely huge, like unimaginable by today's standards, I guess. Completely.
And it's kind of unnerving how some of the things that you listen to feed back to these things. Like there's an advert in this magazine for the Cardigans' Life album, and I can remember going and getting that and really loving that. And then I kind of realised that I think the reason that I got into that was because he made Sick and Tired his single of the week one time. So I'd hear it every day before I went to school, and you think, oh, I have to credit Chris Evans for one of the cool purchases I made at the time. Damn.
Damn you.
So it's I suppose it's significant that we see him here.
Moving on to the next page, a huge statue or figure, I don't know what it is, just a figure of Michael Jackson cruising down the Thames on a barge. Not the actual Michael Jackson, it's a figure of Michael Jackson. So it's the one that's used on the History compilation that came out around about this time. So it says, Jacko's record company went for it big time when they launched his new album, His Story, History. I always say
His Story, I think
you can take it either way. That's what it means, man.
Yeah.
A few weeks back, they strapped a huge 10-metre high fiberglass statue of the King of Pop, trademark, to a barge and towed it along the Thames for all the people of London town to marvel at. And marvel they did. So they've got him going through Tower Bridge and going past the Tower of London, and a huge Michael Jackson, which is just terrifying.
It's terrifying, isn't it? The amount of money that would have been swilling around in the record company coffers at that point, that they would think, we'll build this huge statue and float it down the Thames.
And it's interesting to think that it's less than a year before the infamous Jarvis Cocker Brit Awards stage invasion. So when you see things like this, you think, I can see how the kind of tension was mounting about kind of the way Michael Jackson's sort of PR team were making decisions about how to kind of push his music. And
when you're floating a 10 metre figure of yourself down the Thames, it sends out some signals, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a shame in some ways, because it was only the year before that I think I heard Off the Wall for the first time, the single on Radio 1 one Saturday, and I just thought, oh God, that's just like, I can't imagine a single sounding better than that. It's like the coolest thing in the whole world. And there's something so strange about having a relationship to his music, in the sense that you see things like this and you think, God, that's so mad. But then also having these other things where you think, oh yeah, you also created some of the best pop music ever made. So very odd anyway.
Yeah, so I guess the section that we're into now is kind of like bits.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at it thinking, how can I relate to this? Is this like a smash hits from the 80s, and how is this structured? So
in terms of where it is, how it's laid out here, how does it differ from the golden era that you guys would have?
I think the bits were more clearly defined, like what the things were. This just seems to just be a seamless go through, and there does seem to be a bit of a theme here, but it doesn't. This bit doesn't really have a title, does it? Whereas it used to be like bits was just like the small news stories, like very short phoner interviews and a bit of stuff about new releases or concerts that were coming up. So similar in terms of the content, but it just, like I say, it just doesn't seem to be like this is that bit. It's all just whirling around.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me.
Very photo heavy.
Yes.
And there's not much, the emphasis on the photos rather than the text. So it's almost like this is just a bunch of posters with some writing on there. Because, we turn the page and, again, full page photo of the Boo Radleys with a little bit of a montage of them from their new video as well. For the song, it's Lulu, and this is titled Smash Hits Save My Life. The time, 6 p.m. on a dreary Monday in June. The place, a warehouse in North London. The occasion, the video shoot for the Boo Radleys' new single, It's Lulu, starring Smash Hits. And the Boo Radleys have had a special edition of Smash Hits made with them on the front for use in the video. And Martin Carr, the Boo Radleys guitarist, it says, he's a self-confessed Smash Hits obsessive. Britain's #1 pop mag. He's not only mentioned in the lyrics to It's Lulu, check the Pop Bible for proof, but now it's in the video too. The vid stars an indie type girly in her room reading a special Smash Hits edition with the Boos on the cover, while behind her the wardrobe is completely plastered in Smash Hits posters. It's Lulu is a song about being at that age where you don't trust parents or teachers and you feel the only people who understand you are pop groups, explains Martin. I was like that as a teenager, and Smash Hits was my lifeline to a world of pop stars. Smash Hits saved my life, really. And I thought that was a really nice thing to read, actually, because you think, Boo Radley's on Creation Records, same label as Oasis and Primal Scream, and yet there they are, kind of not afraid to say he loved pop music and Smash Hits was his way into that.
Well, I sent him a tweet to see if he still felt like that.
Oh, yeah.
He said, I don't understand what I meant by that or anything else I said 30 years ago.
Okay, forget what I've just said.
No, but to be fair, he does go on to say, I loved Smash Hits from 81 to 84. I bound my school books with the centre spreads, etc., but I started to lose interest thereafter. So I sent him a screenshot of the feature so he could see it, and his response was that in Smash Hits? I have no memory of that.
That's 1995.
He's having a good
Yeah,
time.
man.
If you were there, you can't remember it, or whatever it is.
But you're right, though. At the time, I found it really endearing that they were openly saying that Smash Hits was a cool thing to be reading, because it's so weird to think of now, but those guitar bands, so many of them at the time, kind of would sort of frame themselves in this we're serious music, man, in a way that pop music isn't, which is so strange to think back on now because it's all sort of the same. But and it's also a genius marketing move.
There's that as well,
on
isn't
their
there? Yeah.
part, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Smash Hits, as a result, in this issue, don't stop talking about that single.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to kind of centre themselves.
Yeah, they get this feature and they get the lyrics printed later on, mainly because it mentions Smash Hits.
Yeah.
It's in the singles reviews.
And it's in the singles reviews, so yeah.
Yeah, but I guess if he's talking about, Martin Carr's talking about, the era that he liked was 81 to 84, and you think back to Smash Hits then, and amongst their favourite bands who would often be on the cover, Echo and the Bunnymen,
Yeah,
Teardrop Explodes and Julian Cope.
yeah.
So, fellow Liverpool bands, and I guess as a kid growing up in Liverpool, he would have seen that, and that's one of the things that they're probably drawing him in.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, the hits back then did really support those bands.
I like the swipe at Shed 7.
Go on. Tell us about the swipe at Shed 7.
Martin checks the posters on the wardrobe, taken from 50 back issues of the hits. Most of them are deemed acceptable, but E17 and Shed 7 get coloured out. We can't have that lot in our video, grins Martin. It's interesting, the Shed 7 thing. So much hatred for Shed 7.
You're talking before about Boyzone, and there's Boyzone again. Lee Evans versus Steve from Boyzone. An imaginary fight between the stars. Which is... UB Bloody 40, get in again. Says next week, Liam Gallagher versus all of UB Bloody 40.
Yeah.
I would like to see that, actually.
Yeah.
Have a look online, try and dig that one out. But yeah, it's like an imaginary fight between them, which is kind of unusual. And then we've got a lot about film. I mean, again, I'm not sure what's going on there. There's like the seduction scene taken from The Mask, so they've taken some stills from the film and done the dialogue. We've got half a page of that. So yeah, we talked about the celebrity heavy, but also kind of Hollywood really creeping in, and a lot about actors, but also just film in general. It feels like almost as important as music, really, by this point, isn't it?
Yes.
It's sort of on equal footing.
Yeah, well, certainly the soap thing, which, again, you would get a lot of soap content through here, but that's, as a result of the Neighbours explosion in the late 80s, because that did start creeping into Smash Hits then, and with a lot of them making the crossover to be pop stars, and then it just becomes something, by this point, it's just moved into the mag, part of the furniture now.
I mean, the thing sort of in the 80s when Neighbours was coming in, you could see it in RSVP when people would always mention it, wouldn't they? But in terms of content in the magazine itself, there was very little really, wasn't there, outside of the pop stuff with Kylie and Jason and stuff. But by this point, it's just, soap gossip and soap news and not related at all to the to any music.
Your film was quite important at that point, certainly in my life, in that on Saturday afternoons, that's what we would all do. We'd go to the cinema. I guess if you're living in like a Welsh village, and there is a cinema, which they then, I think, demolished only kind of a few years after that, which is so sad. But we all used to go to Bangor Plaza on Saturday afternoons, and we just see all the films that they'd show. So basically, all the films that they cover, I think, in this edition, I saw at the cinema with my friends. It's amazing, including The Mask. And I was just thinking about how huge Jim Carrey was at the time, just like what a sort of big figure he was in cinema. And I have a vivid recollection of watching The Mask in that moment. Have you guys seen The Mask?
Years
I went to the
years
cinema
ago.
to see it.
Yeah.
I can't really remember much about it.
Yeah, the moment where Cameron Diaz makes her first appearance in this red dress and it's in slow motion, I can remember really having a kind of strong feeling of, oh God, I'm not going to be able to do womanhood. It's just, this is just too much of a high standard. I don't understand how any of us are able to adhere to these levels of glamour. And it was quite arresting, quite daunting, intimidating. So thank you, Cameron Diaz, for that.
She does listen, so we'll... So I'm kind of interested in what you're saying there, Kat. It sounds like film culture was... Would you say it was kind of as important as the music growing up at that age, or was music still the main way that you and your friends kind of maybe defined yourselves or gave you something to talk about together?
I wouldn't say it was as important as music,
right,
but it was certainly a big part. Yeah, a big part. Something that if all of you pretty much are seeing the same films as they come out, that's something that you're all going to be able to talk about. But they really did feel like from a different universe. I mean, when you go and see something like The Mask, it doesn't feel like it's in any way telling you anything about your own life. It's just, it's
just escapism.
Total escapism. Yeah, completely. Which is why I think a few years later, when something like The Full Monty came out, people latched onto it so strongly, was because it wasn't that often where in circulation you get some of those more kind of independent feeling, kind of earthy films that had content in them where people go, oh, I kind of recognise elements of my own life. Yeah. So,
well, I certainly recognise the Asda supermarket that's in that one, because that's where I used to go with my mum as a kid in the 80s. There you go. That's been demolished now.
Yeah.
But somebody that I went to primary school with is an extra in the supermarket scenes in The Full Monty. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I'm just interested as well, Gav asking about, what was important, musical or film, but also, were your friendship groups defined by, in that tribal way in the 80s, whereby you really defined you and your friendship groups by music? Was that still something that was prevalent in the mid-90s in your friendship group, or being from a smaller place, was that not as strong?
I don't think it was as strong, actually.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting question. I hadn't really thought about it that much. It certainly wasn't as pronounced, but there were still elements of that. Like, I can remember when the Spice Girls started the year after this, there was certainly a feeling in my friendship group that we kind of enjoyed it, but we sort of thought we were a little bit too old for it, and maybe a little bit too cool. And that was sort of something that we kind of had in,
Going back to the summer of 95, and obviously later on in the summer, just a couple of issues after this one, Take That were dominating the news because Robbie had left the band. And they don't really have much presence in this, which I'm surprised about. It is more Boys Home, but
Yeah.
Did you hate Take That, or was it just because their dominance and they were everywhere and you couldn't escape from
Yes,
them?
it was that. It was that. Retrospectively, I recognised that Take That were actually kind of better than most of the boy bands, which was why they would have become the biggest one. But they were. You can't really appreciate now how saturated the media was at the time with them, and I think that I felt a little bit as a teenage girl as if the music industry was being really condescending towards me. They thought they could just like throw some boys on a stage and get them to take their shirts off at me, and that I would automatically buy into that and think that was great. And I think there would have been a lot of other girls that felt similarly. Like, that doesn't mean that you didn't sometimes develop, like I can remember really liking Damon from EYC, but I kept that a total secret, obviously. And I quite liked Declan Donnelly. I think I found him quite charming at the time. But generally speaking, though, there was something about it that felt a bit kind of oppressive. Like, I don't think you can just control my music taste by exploiting me and my hormones. Thank you. You know.
Yeah. So if it was aimed at you, you kind of went in the opposite direction.
Yes. Yeah.
If you whiffed a bit of cynicism about it. No, thank you. Not interested.
But I do have to say that when Robbie did quit Take That, I was on a train in Germany, and the really nice trains that had headphone sockets in the armrests. So, what's on this then? So I plugged my Walkman headphones into that. I was scanning around the dial. Well, I was pressing the button. It was obviously just like a little radio tuner that was in the arm, but going between the different stations. And landed on one, and it was all in German. Lots of girls crying, and then a reporter coming on and talking. And the only thing I could grasp from it, that it was something to do with Robbie Williams and Take That. But the way that this hysterical reaction, but all in German, was kind of like, I didn't understand a word of it. I remember taking my headphones out and said, I think Robbie Williams is dead.
Either that or he's committed a massacre at a German high school.
Yeah. Couldn't quite figure out. I thought something serious has happened here. And they're all these distraught girls putting the headphones back in. All the serious German people talking about, well, obviously Robbie Williams leaving the band, but it just seemed like end of the world stuff. And I'm like,
wow.
Yeah.
I think Robbie's dead.
Okay, we get the A to Z of gossip with Mark Sutherland, our man in a meeting. As you would expect, it's literally an A to Z, and they try and get something for every letter to talk about. Some letters you feel like they struggled on more than others.
Yeah. Well, I think this was a regular feature at the time, having kind of dipped into some other issues from this era. Because I was looking at it thinking, is this a one-off? Is it something? There's something about it. I thought, I think this might be regular.
So we've got C for Cindy Crawford. It says Cindy paid a psychic £650 for saying that she'll get back with Richard Gere and that her Fair Game movie will take $100 million. Don't. I thought I'd double check and see how many, see what it did take at the box office. What do you reckon, Si? I give you, it wasn't $100 million. What would you estimate?
30 million.
Okay. Kat, give us what do you reckon? Higher or lower than 30?
Higher, 40.
$11.5 million. So really bombed by the standards of the time. Anything in there, Kat, that catches your eye? Or?
Well, we have the Liam Gallagher's in trouble. Seems Justin from Elastica wasn't too taken with his comments about her. She's a bit of all right, that Justine, in a recent issue of Smash Hits. I think he was being ironic if he wasn't so thick, growls the Justress. Next time I see Liam Gallagher, he's for it. Blimey. And that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because wasn't she Damon Albarn's girlfriend at the time?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a kind of layer to that, isn't there? So it's not just him being a bit lecherous, it's also him sort of suggesting
all bound
a
up with it as well, I think.
Blur baiting.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's quite interesting.
Very sort of Beano-ish language, isn't it? He's for it next time I see him. Very old-fashioned.
But I think this is where certainly with Mark Sutherland, it starts off, it's about him. So I'm guessing that he always starts with A is for ahoy, and he'll tell you a little bit about what he's been up to. And he says, it's been another crazy fortnight in the world of pop. I've been hanging out with the Boo Radleys and going to see Blur's Ace gig at Mile End Stadium. Cool, huh? Now, let's goss.
Yeah, that was really...
Oh, mate, don't.
Yeah, you're a grown man. You don't speak like that. Yeah, when I was reading through it the first time and I read that, it kind of then put me on that train of thought, thinking this is what's really different from sort of the 80s, is that he's put himself there almost like, let me tell you about the exciting world I live in, and I'll share little tidbits with you. And it never used to be like that. It was like, this is what's happening in the land of pop, but it wasn't like, I've got exclusive access and I'll feed you some little bits. It was very democratic and inclusive, yeah. And this doesn't feel like that. And I think that's why I really struggle with a lot in this issue, because of that feeling of, we're the gatekeepers and we'll tell you what's cool and what isn't. And
do you think they were trying to emulate the vibe of Enemy and Melody Maker with that kind of, I've been out at gigs.
It did remind me of
that
tone. Yeah, I think there's some of that in there.
Well, I think Mark Sutherland's more from that background anyway. But it's interesting, whenever it's a feature that he's doing, or Mark Frith, the editor, there's always a photo of them with it.
Yeah.
So Mark Frith, little photo, Mark Sutherland, little photo, and they appear in it quite a few times. You don't get that with anyone else in the magazine, and you didn't used to get that in 80s smash hits as well. So, like you were saying, Gavin, it is sort of like almost like a cult of personality sort of thing, where they're trying to build up their parts in what's going on. Well, instead of it being like a team thing, and this, he starts off, he tells you what he's been doing, and we meet him a little bit later on. He's telling us what he's doing.
Yeah. He's the king of indie.
King of indie.
Oh, that's so right. When I moved to London, one of the first famous people that I saw was Mark Frith, and I can remember sort of thinking, oh, it's Mark Frith, and that proves what you're saying, because it would have been because I just saw so many pictures of him in smash hits as a teenager. And when I think about it, that is kind of unusual in the sense that that's part of the editorial team.
Yeah, because like as a mid-20s person, if I'd have bumped into David Hepworth in a shop, so I wouldn't have really known what... Well, I only through the whistle test.
The telly, yeah.
But but not because of the magazine. I mean, occasionally there'd be pictures of him, maybe, but this feels very sort of self-promotional, doesn't it?
Yes.
Rather than, this is just an incidental picture. This is like, this is me, this is my bit, and yeah. I mean, there are some interesting little things. I was very surprised to see a mention for Ween in the W, like quite an underground American band. I mean, it says here they're an obscure American... They're not really a grunge band, to be fair, but it says they just happened to be Vic Reeves' favourite band, but he couldn't get hold of any of their records. I'm not sure why he couldn't get hold of the records, but anyway. Until Smash Hits presented him with a copy of their rather fine Chocolate and Cheese LP, which was one of the very first CDs I ever bought, actually, bizarrely enough. We're not just here for the nasty things in life, you know. But again, it feels a little bit like, this is what, we gave a copy of this to Vic, and, it's still that kind of self-promotional, this is how cool we are.
Also, dropping in Ween, who just
would have meant nothing.
Would have meant nothing, and would never, ever get into smash hits. They just were not that kind of band.
No.
I can't imagine, Piss Up a Rope being single of the fortnight.
We'll have a look for that issue, but probably not. I suppose it was helpful that their name began with W, and they probably didn't have a lot else for W.
I think that's more to do with it. When you try and do an A to Z every fortnight, it's going to get a bit...
you're going to be clutching at a few straws there, aren't you?
I think you are. Past a full-page advert for Michael Jackson's His Story compilation, and we get to our cover stars, Vic and Bob. Pop back in time. Welcome to Vic and Bob's Guide to Popular Music. I mean, essentially, it's just an excuse for them to dress up, isn't it, as their favourite pop stars of the 60s, 70s and 80s. But when I looked through it, I thought, they've only done 3 pages. There's more music history than that. And I realised, it's the 90s. We've had more pop history since then.
I wonder whether this was something that was their idea. It feels like it would have been.
Yeah, and it's also something that the Christmas issue of the NME would always get the pop stars du jour, or indie stars du jour, to dress up silly either as other pop stars or
characters from programmes.
Yeah, and things like that. So it feels very much like an NME Christmas sort of thing, but it's just a normal smash hits sort of thing. So it starts off in the 1960s with, unfortunately, Vic Reeves donning the blackface for Jimi Hendrix, and Bob Mortimer in a Beatle suit and a floppy wig being Paul McCartney, with the jacket is clearly too big. So
It's huge from, isn't it?
his little hand is poking, his little thumbs aloft.
It's like year one at big school. It's got the big blazer on in it. Yeah. He does make quite a good little macca though, doesn't he?
He does. I think they've captured sort of like the essence, certain characteristics in that cartoonish way that Vic and Bob would do anyway.
I love Bob's. There was a lot of stealing fruit and veg back then. We used to nick crates of grapefruits, go in the fields and throw them at each other.
Yeah, because they're talking about the 1960s, and it's asked them for their memories of the decade. So they were kids back then. Yeah, some of the pop stars that we get elsewhere in this issue, they're only born at the beginning of the 80s.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing about their presence here, is like the people that are on the cover. As I said, like the fact that they can fill us in on what was going on in the 60s. Which is, I think, kind of fantastic.
So it begins. Fellas landed on the moon. England won the World Cup. Girls wore miniskirts and lads squeezed into tight suits. Everyone was into free love, which meant you could snog whoever you liked. If you can remember the 60s, you weren't there, apparently. It was a time of fluffy-haired genius Jimi Hendrix, famous for setting fire to his guitar, and the mop-top Beatle Paul McCartney. In the mid-60s, Vic Reeves was a 5-year-old urchin in shorts in Darlington, while Bob was in similar pants in Middlesbrough. They didn't know each other.
And Vic's talking about having seen Jimi Hendrix in Darlington once, going through town in a white Daimler. So I thought I'd check that story out, and I found some stuff online about it. It said it happened February the 2nd, 1967. In 1965, Jimmy had been discovered by Chas Chandler, the bassist from the Animals, and Chandler became his manager and wanted him to come over to the UK for a series of gigs. One of them just happened to be in Darlington, but as often happened in those days, to book the gig, and then someone had become a lot more famous since then because Hey Joe was going up the charts. So Reprise, his record company, offered the Imperial at Darlington £300 to cancel the gig so that Hendrix could go to London for promotional work. But the club, quite rightly, refused. So the show went ahead. It says around 200 people were present, paying 10 shillings per head. They crowded into the ballroom to watch the performer, whose promotional poster said, "Don't miss this man who is Dylan, Clapton and James Brown all in one." And then I was interested to see what Vic had made of it as well. So I was flicking through his memoir, Memoir, Volume 1, and he talks about it. He gets the year wrong. He says one day in 1969. But this is what he says about it. It's quite funny. He says, "I was out shopping with Mum and Dad in Darlington Town Centre. We had just emerged from Dresser's Stationery and Bookshop when I spied a white Daimler crawling along the high road. As it passed by, I noticed a face I recognised peering out the back window. It was Jimi Hendrix, my hero. I tore off in pursuit of the guitarist, battling against the overpowering rich aroma of patchouli oil and strawberry fields joss sticks that drifted through the slightly open window. Having fought my way through the sweet miasma, I drew alongside the car and stared through the window. I had a million things I wanted to say to him, but amazement, exhaustion and a lungful of Asian perfume caused this to be transformed into a wide-eyed gawk, accompanied by an angry grin and a little wave. He looked at me, smiled that charismatic smile and waved back. This was my first contact with a pop star and with somebody of whom I was a fan. And later that year I saw my first live pop group, Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch, at the Pantomime in Stockton. While performing their hit Zabadak, Dave D wielded an enormous bullwhip that he cracked during the chorus in order to emphasise the gravity of his words, which no one could deny, as they were in some invented foreign language that only Dave knew. A translation might have been something like, "Zabadak, your government will fall unless you meet my outlandish demands," but I doubt it. It says a little bit more about Hendrix. Anyway, I found out years later that on the evening of the day I encountered him, Hendrix had performed at the Imperial Hotel Bar, a tiny basement room with a stage the size of a small shed, and this at the height of his career. During the performance, he rammed his guitar through the ceiling, which was made of square, perforated asbestos tiles, and continued to thrash it to within an inch of its life. I was shown this piece of rock memorabilia by the landlord and gawped at it in silence, in much the same way as I had years earlier at the man himself. And there we go. So yeah, that would be. Obviously quite a significant moment for young Jim,
Yes.
young Vic. Yeah.
I mean, they ask Vic and Bob why that they've chosen these people. I don't think. I mean, Vic's got that story about seeing Jimi Hendrix. Bob doesn't really have anything to say about McCartney. Does he? The Beatles were massive, weren't they? McCartney just looked great. He was the coolest Beatle. And that's it. Yeah, that's all we're getting. Then memories of the decade where Bob talks about the stealing fruit and veg. But then they ask, what would you bring back from the 60s? And Vic says, I'll tell you what was good. Before colour TV came in, we used to get these pieces of polythene that were orange, red, yellow or blue and stick them in front of our black and white TV to try and make the picture colour. My parents had one of these screens. Apparently it wasn't very... I mean, we had a colour telly by the time I came around, but apparently they weren't very effective. But they were really good for sledging on in the park.
So they had a use.
Yeah.
This whole segment is quite poignant, isn't it? Because it's kind of like saying, look at how interesting pop music used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. And it seems so far back then at that point in 95, looking back to those things, whereas now it feels like these things are still, maybe because of like the way people listen to music now, mainly streaming, it just feels like everything's ever present. But then it felt like you were really taking a big look back, didn't you?
Yeah, well, we didn't really have oldies radio in this country then, whereas, we've got things like Great Hits Radio and stuff now. And streaming brings it back. A music magazine culture, Uncut and Mojo, that won't let go of these people from the 60s and 70s. So it's like that a generation of musicians are the ones that they just won't go away, will they?
They were kind of occupying a place, I think, Vic and Bob, where some of the other interesting pop stars, like, in the 80s, were kind of no longer in the 90s. Like, this is the thing, like now when you see them do their thing, it's quite removed from what they were originally. Like, if you see old episodes of Big Night Out, Vic Reeves is really quite suave, isn't he? Like, he's not a buffoon.
It's more like Brian Ferry.
Absolutely, completely. And, and he'd have that thing of, even though he's a comedy star, there was a lot of music involved. Like, I can remember there being an episode that starts with him sitting in a tumble dryer singing Stay With Me by the Faces. That would be like the typical way.
Yeah, they would always launch an episode with
always with a song.
Yeah, and it was quite often just like, you could tell it was a song that he loved from his record collection. And they'd sort of straddle those two things really effortlessly in a way that I really liked. So it was almost as if Vic Reeves was kind of... Well, I mean, he kind of was a pop star in the sense
he was,
that
wasn't he? Yeah.
He was, and they did the Big Night Out tour, I think, was that around about the time when Dizzy came out, that they did with the Wonder Stuff. So I went to see it at Sheffield City Hall, and that was the first comedy gig that I went to, but it was more like going to a music gig.
Yes.
And it was with all my mates who I would normally go to gigs with, and we went to see Vic and Bob instead. But it didn't feel different to going to see music. It felt like the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and he was like a good frontman in a way that, frontman, and they were...
He's got lead singer energy.
Singer energy, absolutely. And and the fact that Big Night Out had that live band on it, it was sort of filmed kind of like a live gig in that way, rather than it being a sitcom or some other kind of more conventional sort of stand-up thing, having that kind of cabaret aspect. Kind of means that it sort of feels fitting that by this point they're the cover stars on Smash Hits, because the young ones were a little bit like that at points, weren't they, because of that collaboration with Cliff Richards. I like that amazing footage of Rick Mayall on Comic Relief doing the "Do You Love Me" song, which is one of the best things ever.
I love that.
Yeah. So good. And that again is like incredible frontman energy, isn't it? It's like some of these comedy stars at the time that could walk that line. It happened quite rarely, but when it happened, it was quite great.
So we go from the 60s to the 70s. Vic, I couldn't figure this one out at first. I was looking at it thinking, who's Vic dressed as here? I didn't even know Bob was dressed as. But Vic is David Bowie. I'm like, once I read that, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. And Bob is being Joe Strummer. Disco was big, but flares were bigger. Punk rockers were having a lark, dyeing their hair green, putting safety pins through their noses, and fighting with the people in flares. John Travolta was Man of the Decade, complete with stylish white suits from Saturday Night Fever. Two pop stars of the time were the one sarnie short of a picnic David Bowie, and the dead-hard Joe Strummer from punk rock group The Clash. Vic was a teenager, still living in the northeast and unsure whether to have his hair cut like Rod Stewart's or Jesus's. Bob, meanwhile, had moved to Brighton in search of a good time. They still didn't know each other. And they ask why Bowie and Strummer. Vic says, I only like Bowie because he looks so bloody stupid. And Bob says, everyone was into Joe Strummer at my school. He looked like he'd beat everyone up. Memories of the decade. Bob says, this was the first time I dressed foolishly. It wouldn't seem foolish now because it was only a tie, shirt and leather jacket. I had streaks in my hair as well. I remember getting beaten up for dressing like that, but I did deserve it. And Vic says, I was a hippie. I'd wear huge, great, massive, billowing old man's trousers and tiny T-shirts. And God, I stunk. My mother was constantly trying to dispose of my clothes. I spent the entire 70s wearing suede boots too. I took them off once and the whole of Darlington fainted. And then Bob says, I did burn my house down once. I lit a sparkler and set a fire to our orange-coloured telly. Like, oh, that doesn't really kind of go anywhere, does it? And so what would you bring back from the 70s? Vic says, vinyl records. In fact, everything would have to be vinyl. And Bob says, I'd like to try and bring back that orange telly if I could, and in turn heal the split that it created through my family.
Yeah, that did really happen. I read his memoirs
a
year or two ago, and yeah, as a young kid, he set off some fireworks. He thought it'd be a great idea to do it in the kitchen and burn the house down. So,
oops.
Yeah, I was trying to work out the significance of that tattoo. I presume that's a fake tattoo he's got on his arm. It says RWLI, I think.
Isn't it RNLI?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was a W. Yes. Why would I think that? Yes, of course.
I don't know what the significance of RNLI is to the...
to Joe Strummer and the Clash.
Yeah.
No.
That was one of my first pop star crushes, was when the Clash got to number one in 1990, or Should I Stay or Should I Go? They kept showing the video on some of the pops, and Mick Jones was sort of wearing this red boiler suit or something. Yeah. He looks so cool.
Yeah.
Would have picked him over any member of Take That.
Not many people could make a red boiler suit look good. No. So fair dues. Well done.
And then we get to the 80s. Now, again, it's obvious that Bob is being Phil Oakey from the Human League. But Vic, I just couldn't figure out what was going on. I thought it was Meatloaf at first. But it turns out he's being Tony Foghorn Hadley.
It's not the most flattering photo of him.
No, it's not. It's not. And it is more Meatloaf than Spandau. But he says the 80s, blokes wore makeup and grew their hair, while the ladies wore makeup and cut their hair short. Maggie Thatcher was in power and people went money mad. Kylie first popped into the scene and Bros became the biggest band in the universe. Two of the 80s stars were Tony Hadley, lead singer of dodgy pop band Spandau Ballet, and the big girl's blouse lookalike Phil Oakey, lead singer of the Human League. Vic lived in Brixton and worked as an inspector in a factory before moving on to art school, playing in bands and applying for a job on smash hits. And Bob was at college in Manchester and went on to become a solicitor. The pair finally met in a pub in the mid-80s where Vic was performing. They became best mates, top star comedians, and have been joined at the hip ever since. So they ask, why Hadley and Oakey? Bob says, I enjoyed Phil Oakey very much. The Human League was so dramatic and over the top. Unfortunately, I was still stuck in my tie and leather jacket, so I could never emulate this hero. And Vic says, I know Phil Oakey now. He's a great bloke. Lost the hairdo, though. Tony Hadley looked great, didn't he? Starts singing one of Spandau Ballet's greatest hits, Gold. Always believe in your soul. That's as far as it gets of saying anything about Tony Hadley, really. Memories of the decade. Bob says, I was a solicitor and thought that was it for me. I'd never have dreamt that anyone would ask me to be on the telly. Vic, I'd enjoy many a day out on my Norton motorbike in my leather pants. Bob, didn't you once go for a job on Smash Hits? Vic, oh yeah, I saw a job advertised in the paper, so I sent off this letter saying something like, I think it's marvellous all the work you're doing for the young children. But they didn't bother with me. If you want to know more about that, listen to the episode with Barry McElhenney.
Yes.
Because he was the one who interviewed Vic for the job.
Amazing.
What would you bring back from the 80s? Which, in 1995, the 80s still felt so very, very close. Bob, I'd invite a lot of chrome into my house. Vic, pretending to be a pseudo-intellectual and pretending to have read books that you hadn't. Bob, I'd like to bring back the spirit of going out. There were a lot more people in pubs back then. Vic, I think I should get another interview for that Smash Hits job. And then, little photo of the real Tony Hadley and Phil Oakey as well, and Phil from an old issue of Smash Hits on the cover there.
I think my introduction to Phil Oakey was his appearance in the Vic and Bob film The Weekenders.
Oh, yeah, at the Meat Festival.
Yeah, at the Meat Festival.
I don't think I've seen that.
Long, lustrous
brilliant.
hair, which is a great appearance. I think
he
he just
standing in a
laughs
field?
manically.
Yeah,
Yes.
is there like a table of meat in
Yes.
front of him and he's standing in the field, like you say, just laughing a lot?
Yeah, in a cropped leather jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it's
a red
bizarre.
vest. And
Really,
it's really,
yeah.
really bizarre.
Very funny.
Yeah, extremely funny. It's quite like the Pet Shop Boys film, is it? It Couldn't Happen Here?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
got that kind of feel to it.
There we are. We'll add that to our film list with the
Jerusalem as well, the Style Council one goes
film.
with that as well.
The Pet Shop Boys film, and now Vic and Bob's film.
My Vic and Bob stories, I used to work in the Hour Price in Middlesbrough in about 92, 93, and obviously Vic and Bob are from that area in the northeast. And I was a huge fan of Big Night Out and stuff. Never got to meet Bob, but I saw the back of his head disappearing out through the shop. I just came down just as he was leaving. Everyone was like, Bob Morton was just near and he bought this and that. I was like, I'd been upstairs in the stock room. So, yeah, I saw the back of his head. And Vic, I saw at Waterstones in Manchester in the 90s when he brought out a book of drawings and daft little stories, Sun-Boiled Onions, and there was like a sign-in and stuff. So I took a cassette. I thought he would like Mrs. What's she called? Mrs. Mills or Mrs. Miller? Who's the one who does like...
Mrs. Mills is piano.
Yeah, Mrs. Miller is like the weird... Yeah,
Is she American, I think? Mrs.
yeah,
Miller,
so I'd taken a cassette of Mrs. Miller who did like odd quasi-operatic versions of pop songs from the 60s and 70s, and I thought he would like it. So as I was getting the book signed, I said, I thought you might... And as soon as I started handing him something, this couple of he looked really nervous, and a couple of security people came to kind of see what I was doing, and I was just handing him this tape. I felt like a weird stalker. I was like, just wanted to give you this tape. And I never thought about it any more about it for a while, and then a few years ago, I tracked down some radio shows, because then I was living in Italy for a while, but he'd done a show called House Arrest with Noel Fielding, and he would like play a different odd song every week as part of it, and one of them was a Mrs. Miller track, so I thought, that was my influence. I've got no way of proving it, but it's a good story, so I'll take the credit for it.
Fantastic.
Take it.
Yeah.
Definitely take the credit for it. Absolutely.
So that's my encounters with Vic and Bob in real life. So we leave Vic and Bob in the 1980s and we move on to the 90s with Tony Mortimer, Dr. Tony Mortimer, as they call him, from E17. I'm not really sure what the point of this article is, but they're asking him the most difficult scientific, in quotation mark, questions in the universe. I mean, I wasn't really expecting good things from this. Some of it is actually quite funny and quite amusing in an old school Smash It style. For example, one of the questions, and I think this is a genius answer actually on Tony's part. Why do we need toenails? He says, because they act as something hard for your toes to push against, and this creates a pressure so that you can go forward. Okay. Answers on a postcard, please. And it's just a lot of that. I mean, I don't know, Kat, were there any particular answers that Tony gave? It's a slight article, isn't it? But there is some fun to be had in it.
I liked, why do you never see baby pigeons? Because they're in their nests and their mum and dad bring them food. Well, it's usually mum that gets the food because dad's off having an affair with the bird over the road. Literally. So the babies don't come down until they're big enough to look after themselves.
I think that tells us all we need to know about Tony's life, childhood.
Yes, possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Some Freudian stuff going on there, I think.
Well, what did you guys think of E17?
At the time, it was just another boy band. I know kind of they were pitched against Take That, but watching the Top of the Pops repeats when they got to 1992, there's an authenticity and an urgency, I think, to the early E17 stuff that is completely missing from Take That. Take That are slick. They've got the dance routines and they're doing cover versions, whereas at E17 were mostly doing original songs, but hear them now, I think they do stand up pretty well, the earlier stuff anyway. So yeah, I think of them much more kindly now, much more positively now than I did back then. Back then they were just annoying, you know, and I was, you know, playing guitar in a band. If it didn't have guitars in it, I didn't want to know, man.
I think House of Love is fantastic, I have to say. It's like a boy band meets the KLF.
Yeah,
it's
a
great single. You're right, though. I watched that footage recently of them on the reruns of Top of the Pops, and they were so popular with girls. In fact, I think there was an episode of Chart Music where Neil Kulkarni was saying that he went to a E17 gig and he'd just never seen a crowd of girls go as wild as they did.
I think it's because they were the real thing, I think.
Yeah,
and they were kind of like the bad boys as well.
Yeah,
so
that's a very good point.
Something edgy about them.
Yeah.
They were like the Stones to the Take That's Beatles, weren't they, in a way?
Yeah.
You know, like a more clean-cut sort of band, and E17 were the slightly rougher end, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, Gav, have you got
they're not a band I've ever really spent much time like thinking about or listening to. I watched the performance that's on the video playlist, and their introduction on that, whoever's introducing Top of the Pop says the bad boys of pop, and then they come out with this really quite insipid, like wet song, and you're like, oh.
Yeah,
they had some terrible singles.
Yeah, they did. And this was...
Maybe I need to dig deep into the early stuff, man.
Yeah.
That's where the cool stuff is.
Prefer their earlier stuff,
Play some old.
I think they got off the boil by this point. But yeah, on that Top of the Pops performance, I can't even remember what the song's called.
No, it drifted in and out.
But it's kind of a bit insipid. But you know, Tony Mortimer's there with a keytar.
Yep.
And on the video playlist, keytars make several appearances. I think, forget Britpop and the Gibson 335 semi guitars that everybody was using then. 1995 was about the keytar.
Yeah, it was key guitar.
Yeah.
The key guitar, yeah. I know, who'd have thunk it. And that never gets talked about in 90s
it really
revivals, does
doesn't.
it?
No.
Something that was big at this point in the 90s was Sweets, and that comes up in this interview. And I was thinking, I wonder whether Sweets are still as big anymore. Yeah, I kind of feel as if there isn't as much talk about Sweets, but on the other hand, maybe I just wouldn't know.
I mean, I picked the Toenails answer.
Yeah. That's quite bizarre.
But the other one that I circled as well was, why does Robbie Williams keep dyeing his hair? Which is a question to Tony. And he answers, he's got an ego problem and he wants to be noticed all the time. I do think his hair suits him blonde, though. I'm all for people being individual. I had my hair blonde years ago when I was 17. Yeah, I've been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. My next tip for hair is to grow it long. I'm trying to do that now, but I keep getting it cut. Which, yeah.
Maybe that's why that's not.
Maybe that's why that's a problem. Yeah. But I think that his answer there, he says Robbie's got an ego problem. And I think they probably know that there are rumblings in the Take That camp already.
That's interesting,
yeah. I hadn't thought of that, but that makes sense.
I think that's almost like
I'm sure they would have got some stuff on the grapevine, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they would have. Or Tony's Mystic Meg, another big character.
It does tell you something, though, about the culture in the 90s, because I do feel, well, obviously, this is just a guess, but it feels as if in the 80s people are a little bit more kind of knowing and open about the idea of, wanting to sort of dye your hair different colours and having attention. If you're going to be a pop star, you might as well sort of go in and do it. Whereas this thing where he says got an ego problem and he wants to be noticed all the time, I thought, yeah, that's the thing in the 90s. Everyone was a bit like, yeah, I'm a pop star, but it sort of happened accidentally, and I'm a very serious and shy individual. Don't think that I want to show off or anything. And you think that's quite different from the 80s, I think.
Yeah. Again, it's that keeping it real thing we were talking about before, I guess, wasn't it? Trying to be like authentic and not sort of performatively kind of demonstrating that you want to be noticed.
Exactly.
I mean, you do really, but you don't want anyone to know that you do.
Yeah,
of course, they wanted to be pop stars in 17, didn't they?
Yeah, but they didn't want to be seen trying. I think that's the thing. Yeah.
No. I think for a while, I think they got it right in retrospect.
Yeah.
Until it went wrong. But
wise words, mate.
But I think that my main takeaway from this and in my notes after reading this article, I was like, I don't get it.
No.
Because I think they are trying to be like smash hits of old, but they're not quite getting it.
Yeah.
It's not a, does your mother play golf or what colour is Tuesday sort of thing.
No, you're right. One last one I quite enjoyed was, why is the sea salty? He says, because when the sea washed up against the rocks, it took all the salt from the earth back with it, and also some of the salt is from fish poo. Okay.
Moving on from Tony Mortimer, and we get to Jarvis Cocker. Oh no, not the biscuit tin. A feature that it was a regular during Smash Hits in the 90s, that we've encountered it before. Although it was Mr. Bean being asked the questions last time.
That's right.
Wasn't very entertaining.
No.
But it does explain the rules of what the biscuit tin is. It says, in the biscuit tin, there are 100 envelopes. Each contains a horribly difficult question. You must open 20 envelopes at random and answer the question inside. You can pass on only one. Good luck. So yeah, Jarvis Cocker is the one sticking his hand into the biscuit tin. And as soon as I started reading this, I was like, oh, this is more like it. I mean, not that I'm being a music snob or an indie kid or anything like that. I mean, I have been both of those things in my life. Although I probably just played a bit of being an indie kid.
I am still both of those things.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
But Jarvis is exactly the sort of pop star we want to see in Smash Hits. He's intelligent, he's curious, he's wry, and he's daft. He's aware of the ridiculousness of being a pop star. And it's a very quotable piece as well. But I think Jarvis is that little bit older than most of the other pop stars being interviewed. He's from the generation before, almost, if you think that Pulp released their first album in 82, 83. So he was coming of age during that period. And I think you get more of that playful sense of that time comes through in Jarvis's answers. He's not as guarded as some of the media trained pop stars of the day. And Jarvis is always great value anyway. If anyone's a national treasure, it's our Jarvis. And the first question, who's the best, Zig or Zag? So from the puppets from the Big Breakfast. I've only seen them once when I was on the Big Breakfast, but that was very disconcerting because I could see the blokes with their hands up their bums working them. I don't think I'm missing out though. The last thing you want at that time in the morning is someone shouting at you in a funny voice. And you just straight into it.
Yeah.
And it's just, pure Jarvis from the beginning. And I think, he's the perfect pop star for Smash Hits and for this kind of feature. Kat, I mean, this is one of the things that drew you to this. You're looking at this issue of Smash Hits. How did you feel about Jarv at the time?
Well, he mentions in this interview his appearance on Pop Quiz that happened the year before. And that was one of the first times I think it was certainly the first time I saw Jarvis chat. I'd seen him, I think, on the chart show doing Babies and possibly other singles. But I can remember thinking, this is really interesting because it's someone from an indie band who is unashamedly a massive pop fan. And he's not he's not sort of acting as if it's somehow a shameful thing to talk about the fact
or
that
a
he
bit
used
beneath
to,
him. Or...
Yeah, exactly. That he used to watch Top of the Pops and that he remembers he was at number 1 in 1978 and, all of these things. And he kind of wiped the floor with everyone else on the panels. And I can remember thinking, this is really great. We've got someone that is very charismatic and unusual in their manner, very striking, but is also happy to be a pop star and that isn't going to do this thing where it's going to be kind of implied that in order to kind of be part of a band like his, you have to kind of, shun other forms of pop music. And that was a really great thing about Jarvis.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I never thought of it like that before, but Pulp were a very kind of inclusive band in that way, weren't they?
Yeah.
You got the feeling with Oasis and bands like Primal Scream, they had a certain record collection, and if you liked, T-Rex and the Beatles and the Stones, that was part of that, but anything outside of that was definitely lesser. With Pulp, it felt a lot more kind of democratic, and it was all pop, and it was all exciting, and whatever was fine, it was... Yeah.
In terms of, we were talking about earlier in terms of Britpop, And I think that something about Pulp that was very distinctive in comparison to a lot of other bands that were around at the time that were kind of grouped together with them was that Jarvis felt like someone that was very interested in sex and like emotional affairs, shall we say. That, you know, like you can have like that a sprawling song like Sheffield Sex City that's so funny but also very kind of horny. And
that's why I moved here.
yeah.
Well, as someone grown up in Sheffield, to hear that song and all these, because, you know, normally places that are sung about in songs that are American, you know, and whether it's the New Jersey Turnpike or Mississippi or whatever, you know, these places that sound really cool in America, and then to hear someone intoning in their own accent. The place, you know, Gleedless, Manatop, and, you know, all these places that I knew, and, you know, this is where I grew up, was back in my head, and it just felt so bizarre, and it kind of almost felt wrong in a way to hear these place names being sung Gleedless. And, but he's doing it all in that kind of, you know, almost like a Barry White-esque.
Attercliffe.
Darnell, whatever. He's doing all these little places in and around Sheffield. And I was just like, oh my God, this is just incredible. But I think up until that point, because Pulp had been around for so long, you know, and I was involved in the music scene back then in Sheffield, you know, as a, you know, sort of 16, 17-year-old, but we were vaguely aware of Pulp. We'd seen them in the local paper, in the music pages in there. And they kind of become a little bit of a joke. In that,
that's interesting.
They've been going for so long and just never done anything. And you'd see Jarvis wandering around town, and he was, you know, and he was a very individual character.
Yeah.
And my mate Paul was in a band. They rehearsed at the same place as Pulp, so this was around about the time that they were finally starting to get somewhere. They'd done the three EPs, Babies, and the three things that are on the Pulp intro album were the three EPs that were done kind of like an offshoot of Warp Records, and that was a thing to try and to launch them into the big time, which worked. So this was around that time, so they were back in Sheffield then. So now Jarvis had kind of been down in London for St Martin's College, and I saw or Paul spotted Jarvis coming down Fargate in town with a carrier bag in his hand. And Jarvis Cocker's over there. And he was getting closer to us, and I'd never met him before, but thinking back, I used to live on his bus route, so I used to see him getting on the bus in Intake. I used to see him getting on the bus in Intake. And so I kind of like, oh, it's that kid that I used to see getting on the bus. But bearing in mind, he's like, 30, whatever by this point. And he got his carrier bag, and I was like, "All right, Paul, all right, Jarvis, just a little, just little pleasantries." And I'm like, "Oh, what have you got in your bag there?" So, been some charity shops. I bought some shoes. And I'm like, "Oh, you're wearing somebody else's shoes, secondhand shoes? Oh, that's disgusting." Well, what's wrong with that? And that's the only time I met Jarvis, and that is the extent of our interaction. That I was appalled by him wearing shoes from a charity shop.
That was a huge thing about them, because at the time, with Blur and Oasis, that pressure to wear sports gear was huge.
Yeah.
Like, to wear these that's something that people don't really talk about that much, which I find confusing, because people say the Britpop bands kind of represented the outsiders, the kind of people that were. But you think, but there were big swathes of it where you felt like if you weren't wearing the right shoes, you were going to get shut down.
Yeah, if it wasn't Fred Perry or the right Adidas or Umbro.
Yeah.
And again, that's the lad culture part of it coming through, whereas Pulp was more of a charity shop, jumble shop chic, which I think they probably had more in common with Suede.
Yeah.
On that front, and certainly from some of the subject matters in the songs, although there's not much light in the Suede songs from that time, whereas there's kind of more humour in what Jarvis is singing about in some of his seedy situations. But I think again, like Vic and Bob, that harking back to a 60s, 70s light entertainment thing in some of the clothes, Cuban heels, slightly flared trousers, velvet jackets and things like that, and striped shirts. And they weren't afraid to look a little bit ridiculous.
Yes, yes, completely.
Which is a pop star.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's what you
Yeah.
want your pop star to be.
yeah,
Which is why Jarvis is just perfect.
yeah. And he had such a gift for kind of writing these lyrics that had such kind of granular detail to them, like such great imagery and so sympathetic to a woman's perspective as well as a man's, which I think at the time felt quite important to me. Like, you know, something like Lip Gloss, you have lines like, you feel such a fool for laughing at the bad jokes and putting up with all of his friends and stuff. You know, you've got these like great, lovely sort of empathetic lines about kind of what the experience would have been time to be a young woman as well as being a young man.
Well, I think that applies in like Do You Remember the First Time as well, and
Yes,
and,
of
and
course.
Babies is kind of, I know it's from his perspective, kind of peering out from a wardrobe or whatever, but about the two sisters.
Well, that's the thing, is that young women do like, I think, in a frontman sometimes, the idea of someone that does seem quite obsessed with the opposite sex. They find that quite appealing, so long as it's not done in a dark way and without humour. He did it brilliantly. I think he pulled it off fantastically in the sense that he was a bit older and he was, writing these songs like Babies that are a bit kind of pervy and a bit sort of, sticky carpeted. And but it's like what you were saying about what young women liked about E17, that there can be an appeal in that because it's reality. And if you manage to walk the line correctly, then you feel much more like an interesting individual who's making pop music than someone that's just kind of, doing very broad brush things out there, So I think he was great in that way.
He could have gone the other way. He could have become an Uncle Disgusting for the 90s.
Yeah, very much so. Could have quite easily gone,
But he straddled that line
Yeah.
well, I think,
yeah, with his perv lyrics.
High risk.
A high-risk manoeuvre, but
Yeah.
like you say, he pulled it off magnificently.
He really, really did, yeah.
And, I mean, what a band. And, I don't know, are you still a fan now?
Oh,
of Pulp?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I saw them last year in Manchester, and it was an amazing gig. How about you guys?
Yeah, I saw them twice last year. I saw them in Scarborough and Sheffield, and
Fantastic.
just brilliant.
Yeah.
I've not seen them on this round of reunion shows, but I did see them, was it 2012 when they first got back together? I went to see them on that tour in Sheffield. And
I saw the documentary about that. Death in supermarkets. Stuff. Yeah.
And his sister came on stage. They were throwing toilet rolls around. They did the song that was their first single, My Lighthouse. So they're really kind of embracing their full career and not just the 90s stuff. And it was a sold out show at Sheffield Arena, and it really was like this homecoming thing. It was quite emotional.
Yeah.
You see them, because they've been broken up 10 years at that point. You don't think you're going to get to see them again, and Jarvis has put a couple of albums out, but they've not really set the world on fire, even though I love those first two solo albums. But just to see them back, it was just absolutely euphoric being there.
And they've got such a number of like incredible tunes. Like they really did. When you go to a live gig, you think, wow, the set list here is phenomenal.
Yeah. And that he can still, because, what is he now, in his early 60s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's kept his figure.
Yeah. He's still got the moves.
Still got the moves. Yep. And because he never sang in a particularly high straining voice, he can still sing the songs as well.
Yeah.
And I think, the band themselves, Jarvis and the songs, have all aged together really well.
Yes.
And they don't feel like something that's stuck in the past.
Yeah.
I think we've aged together, and we're all okay with that.
Well, they very cleverly didn't latch themselves too firmly to the idea of youth in the way that some of the other Brit, like you had that famous Noel Gallagher and Michael Hutchins moment of him saying has-been shouldn't be giving awards to gonna-be's, and when you're sort of seeing that moment happen at the time, you think, though this person is very much kind of like utilising the idea of him being now and young and which is something that you can do, but with Pulp they wrote songs like Help the Aged and stuff. They weren't afraid to not kind of utilise that thing of being kind of we're never going to die. Quite kind of in touch with immortality.
Yeah, it's not live forever.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think as well as the lyrics, the music's aged well as well, because it's not that kind of lumpen guitar music that has aged pretty badly and sounds very dated now. It was always a lot more interesting that with the different sounds, the keyboard and the violin, and there's guitar in it, but it's not like just a rock kind of sound, there's lots and lots of different layers.
That's such a good point. We've got lovely sort of synth lines to it and stuff. Yeah.
Very melodic and
absolutely.
Stuff. So, I mean, just going back to this article, in terms of the questions, like you said, it's very quotable and there's lots of great ones. And we talked a bit about the kind of Uncle Disgusting and the sexiness, and it does get asked, which I thought was an unusual choice to put in the magazine. Where's the strangest place you've ever had sex? He says Wormwood Scrubs. Not the prison, which is a relief, I guess. The actual common, although I'm not sure that's much better. Very common. It's more interesting doing it in places that you're not supposed to. So that seemed a bit of an odd inclusion in there. But any particular favourite questions for you, Kat, that he answers?
I mean,
there's lots really. I think you could pick any. But.
I really like the. Which bit of the jelly baby do you eat first? I refuse to eat them anymore because they've spoilt them. I don't understand why all these sweets and that have been around for a long time and now being changed. I used to like the fact that jelly babies were quite crude. Now they've got bloody bonnets on and all that kind of crap. So I refuse to eat them on principle now. And then says Ed. Rants on for 3 days about Mars bars, Rolos, Heinz tomato soup, etc. And sorry, I went off on one a bit there.
Well, there's a reference to the editor in one of the answers as well. What's your football team? Sheffield Wednesday. I support them mainly because they play in blue, whereas Sheffield United play in red, and I hate red. Your editor supports Sheffield United, doesn't he? So he's a pig. Because Mark Frith was a Sheffield lad.
Right.
And that was growing up. That was always the question. You're a Wednesdayite, Unitedite. I was neither. Never bothered about football. I used to say I supported Outer Mongolia FC, which is a thing that I got from the Beano. I like this one. What's the most exotic thing you can cook? Last week, I cooked spinach souffle. I was cooking for a special friend, and I think they were quite impressed, even though they didn't eat all of it. They tried to hide what was left under their knife and fork, but I was wise to their game.
One more little one that I really like is about where he talks about Sheffield. He says, the question is, what do you talk about with your hairdresser? He says, if I get my hair cut in Sheffield, I go to this bloke who's my sister's best friend, and we just trade bitchy gossip about people we know. Sheffield is a lot like Dallas, I like that. But lovely article and a nice kind of, as we said, a nice kind of throwback really to previous smash hits. It's got that kind of frothy pop energy to it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, and this one is, if you found Aladdin's lamp, what would you wish for? I'd hate that, to be honest. In my experience, people can do exactly what they want. They're very jaded. Although the possibility of banning Marty Pellow from ever making a record again would be quite tempting. So maybe I'd wish for that and then throw it away.
Yeah. No, his answers are quite considered, aren't they?
Yeah.
Which is what I like about it. It's not just he's not just spouting off the top of his head. He's thinking a little bit about it beforehand. They ask one of the questions that comes out, what's the first thing you read in Smash Hits? The song words. Sometimes you don't realise you've been singing the wrong words until you see them. It's good, because if you get it wrong, you can really get the mickey taken out of you at school. I remember when Boogie Wonderland was in the charts, and this girl thought the words were Boogie with your dad. She got some stick.
Boogie with your dad.
But also, you read them and you hear his voice.
Yeah, you do.
When you're reading the answers, it's undeniably Jarvis. I think previously probably the only pop star who could come out with answers like this would be Neil Tennant. You could imagine Neil Tennant coming out with some of these answers or these types of answers.
Yeah, quite wry and witty and just very sharp.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It was lovely to see Jarv.
I love the fact that he was taking time out to make a souffle for a special friend when he was busy being a pop star.
I know, because souffles, that's
quite a high level skill set, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So, Kat, we've moved on a couple of pages. We're going to look at Shane and Angel's wedding briefly. At the risk of sounding like one of those YouTube videos where it's confused old man reacts to stuff in popular culture he knows nothing about, I need some help here. Because Home and Away, is that right? Were they Home and Away?
Yes, Home and Away.
I mean, as someone that's, does a podcast about on-screen relationships, maybe you can give us an idiot's guide
Well,
to...
from what I remembered, that there'd been a long build-up between Shane and Angel, and I think they had got together when they were at school, and they'd been on and off again for what feels like years, and this would have been sort of culmination of all of that.
Right.
Apparently they hated each other in real life.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Tricky.
Yes. It's amazing how... did you guys watch soap operas?
I had watched Neighbours probably up until about 87, but I mean, this was a long time after that, and Corrie, being a kid, up to probably about the mid-80s, but then I was out of it by then, so it was totally not on my radar. Were you watching the soaps much at this point?
So I watched Neighbours and Home and Away at the beginning of the 90s, as did my friends, and it's amazing how much you would see these actors day to day, to the extent where there's a couple of episodes of Friends where Melissa George, who played Angel, crops up as Ross and Rachel's hot nanny to their kid. And as Ross says, so hot I cried myself to sleep last night. And it's amazing how when she appears, because you saw this person so much in your day-to-day life, at a certain point, like your brain kind of thinks your cousin is in Friends, if you know what I mean. And it's like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Well done. Like, that's great. Let's call, Auntie Lindsay and congratulate her on the fact that her daughter's invented things. It's very strange. It's just like someone you have no relationship with. But it's because you just have that just daily sort of
half an hour every day.
Yeah, and it was all sort of filmed in this very kind of unflattering kind of light. So I think that's the thing. Your brain almost thinks that you like took a trip to the beach on all of those years and just sort of saw all these people kind of, as if you went to school with them or something. But
it was all quite harsh video.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Didn't look particularly glossy or anything like that. But no, my girlfriend at the time, her mom, watched the soaps religiously, particularly the Australian ones, and I just used to find them laughable. They're so kind of like melodramatic and cornily written, and I'd sit there sniggering. I'd always get a wallop. For mom. Stop laughing, it's not funny. And I'd be sniggering into me alphabets and beans.
Yeah. Well, we needed our bit of drama. There was lots of milkshakes being thrown in people's faces and rack off.
Yeah, and your flaming galah.
Yeah, flaming galah. Yeah, exactly.
So the aim of this little article is to recreate the soap wedding of the century, and there's little things you can cut out and a little sort of diorama of a church, and you kind of stick things on, and it's a competition to win. The best one would be awarded the wedding gifts that we were going to give Shane and Angel, but decided to gift you instead. So it includes things like, now this is like generation game, like the kind of things that would be on the conveyor belt at the end: a toaster, a barbecue, his and hers aprons, blue and pink slippers, and a carriage clock. So that's what you could win in 95. I can't imagine that many kids really wanting to get those things, but let's leave Shane and Angel.
Yeah.
We'll move briefly on, I think, to Fanbase, which is a new feature. Si, tell us all about this exciting feature.
Yeah, well, it says, where can you find your favourite star this fortnight? And it's like a combined TV and gig guide plus fan club info. So much Boyzone. I mean, like everything. Really, it's like July Wednesday 5th. Will Carlin's doing something. PJ and Duncan. And those busy Boyzone boys playing in Northern Ireland. Thursday 6th. Top of the Pops. Oh, Boyzone are playing a gig in Ireland. Friday 7th. Ultimate Chaos. Coca-Cola Football Crazy Roadshow. Boyzone. Saturday 6th, East 17, playing at Epping Forest. D-Ream are on some TV show. Boyzone are getting the weekend off there for the Saturday and Sunday. But It's just like relentless boys zone. But over the page, well, there's Jarvis again, because they've got the Good Fan Club guide this issue. Pulp tells you how much it's to join, £5. What do I get? An Ace fanzine Disco Very, a scrapbook of press cuttings from 1980 to 1992, a huge full-colour poster, badge, bi-monthly newsletter, and a pulp book bind. So yeah, it's quite a generous thing. And it's being run by Mark Webber, who was the Secret Sixth member of the band. He was their second guitarist when they played live. And then when Russell Senior left, he took over main guitar duties, and Richard Hawley moved into the temporary guitar slot.
Good Sheffield facts there, Si.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
I like the little bit about Reading Festival, the hot ticket. Send your cheques for £60. £60! They can't believe how expensive it is to go to a festival. Should come and live in 2024, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
60 quid, imagine that. Oh,
Yeah.
can't go to a single gig for that these days, really.
No, and then Search Out the Stars, your fortnightly guide to the places stars hang out. So a bit of that kind of showbiz, paparazzi culture coming back in. This issue, Damon Albarn, he's talking about a shop in Soho where you can buy loads of Fred Perry shirts in different colours. Mod Heaven, it says, full of Parkers, Ben Sherman's, skinny T-shirts, badges, patches and original 60s suits. And who else can I see in there? Only the cool and hip, naturally, Oasis, Morrissey, Elastica, Menswear, Paul Weller and Vic Reeves all shop there.
Just interesting, as we go through the magazine, we come across the Smash Hits mailing list page, and we were talking before about that kind of direct marketing to people, and this is, I mean, it's free. You can get post from your favourite pop stars for free. Smash Hits wants to enrol you on the mailing list of our favourite artists, which mean you will receive through the post info on new releases, tours, merchandise, special events, and offers for absolutely no pence. But it is that idea of very targeted stuff, isn't it? You know, which is quite interesting. So yeah, Oasis. How do you pronounce it? Jodeci? Jodeci, thank you. I'm unaware of Jodeci. Boo Radleys, Clock, I know how to say that. Bobby Brown, when he's not humping around, and the Smash Hits album, and there's a hotline number there. So, yeah, this is the kind of thing we would never have seen in the 80s.
No, but it was a time for, every time you bought a CD single, it'd always be send it off to 3 Alveston Place.
Leamington.
They
all lived there, all the pop stars.
Yeah, CV37. And you put your name and address on there, and you'd get postcards. Every time a single was coming out, you get a postcard, or you get badges. I've still got loads of those postcards from like the Boo Radleys and Oasis and all sorts of bands of that era. But they're worth a fortune.
Yeah.
I bet they're not.
Yeah, possibly not.
I've still got somewhere a bottle of promotional water from Dodgy. I got a gig some Dodgy water. Anyway.
Moving on, we've got the Pop Bible I mentioned earlier on, which is all the lyrics to the big chart hits, but just in one sort of fortnightly free music magazine within Smash Hits, like a little supplement. The song words for this issue are Humping Around by Bobby Brown, which I feel like we've suddenly mentioned quite a lot. Be My Lover by La Bouche. D-Ream, Shoot Me With Your Love, which could be subtitled Things Are Only Slightly Different. Edwyn Collins, A Girl Like You. Ultimate Chaos, Right Here. Try Me Out by Corona. The aforementioned Boo Radleys, It's Lulu, and Vic and Bob turn up again with their tune, What They Did with EMF. Cover of I'm a Believer, which I think it got pretty high in the charts. I don't know if it got to number one, but it was
a hit.
It was a sizable hit.
Top
I think.
Yeah.
Top 10 at least.
Yeah.
So there's not really a lot else reporting here. There's a few kind of smallish interviews with D-Ream and stuff, but mainly it's just the lyrics, and again very photo heavy.
I thought it was interesting. They've got the Smash Hits Readers chart again. That's a new thing. It's a phone line. You can phone up and tell Smash Hits what your favourite song is at the time. I guess it would probably be like, here's the top 10. Press which number you like or something like that. But the charts for the 21st of June to the 4th of July, we've got Back for Good by Take That. Top position, Unchained Melody by Robson and Jerome. Two Can Play That Game, Bobby Brown. Let It Rain, East 17. Scream, Michael Jackson. Key to My Life, Boyzone. Boom Boom Boom, Out Here Brothers. Whoops Now, Janet Jackson. Only One Road by Celine Dion's new entry, and Don't Want to Forgive Me Now. Wet, wet, wet. So that's what was floating the boats of the Smash Hits readers in this fortnight in 1995. Now, Bobby Brown, humping around.
Yes.
Can I just read the first verse?
Go for it.
And you tell me what you think he's singing about.
Okay.
When you trust someone and you know you're on their back, you ain't got no trusting about you, and you claim that you don't care where I'm at. You giving me reason to doubt you. Say you trust someone. Why are you calling all around? Think I've got some dip on the side? Girl, Jesus. You don't trust no one, and you're constantly in doubt. You lose the game if you play that way. And I read that and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It's just a word salad. And you've got a dip to go with it. Pass the crudités. I've just got no idea what's going on.
I think he's basically saying to his whoever his lady friend is at the time, girl, you're going to have to trust me. I ain't humping around, which I think is proof that he is humping around.
If he's got to say it like that, then he's definitely humping around. He's got multiple dips on the go.
You lose the game if you play that. I mean, you're gonna lose Bobby if you play the game that way.
Yeah.
I wonder if they made the record with that kind of in mind, because it feels when you listen to it very much like he is humping around. It's got that sound to it.
Yeah. And he's doing some humping in the video as well.
Yeah.
For someone who's saying he's not humping around, it's very hump heavy.
Yeah. It's like a frisky Jack Russell. Yes.
He's quite defensive, is Bobby Brown. It's quite like the My Prerogative record. He sort of specialised in those records. It's sort of quite angry. It's like, just get off my back, everyone.
I know. Yeah. God, he was accusing me of doing these things that I'm doing, that I am doing, that I'm saying I'm not doing.
Exactly.
And there's nothing to do with you. Yeah, I get a bad vibe off him on this record, definitely.
I do quite like it, though.
It is all right, actually, yeah. It's all right.
The lyrics for A Girl Like You are in there. And, actually, with each song, you get a fact about the artist. So you get a little fact about Edwyn Collins. But that reminded me, I felt that was very chart show. You know, like when they played the videos and they would always, halfway through the song, you would get like 3 nuggets of info about them, about, whether they like curry or something like that, or when their album's out, or when they're on tour. And that's what that reminded me of this. And I think actually the chart show was probably more influential and more part of the Smash Hits world than Top of the Pops was in a way. And I think Saturday lunchtime or that late Saturday morning was probably more of a key time for pop kids for keytars and pop kids to see something on the telly and then go Woolworths and buy it. It was like an immediate kind of cause and effect sort of thing. But Edwyn Collins, Girl Like You, just want to hark back to my month-long interrailing trip around Europe in the summer of July/August of 95, and stayed in youth hostels basically dotted around Europe. And this was in Munich, and I was sharing a room with 2 Spanish guys that didn't speak a word of English, but they got a boombox and they were just playing tapes constantly. So like 1 o'clock in the morning, I was already in bed. They burst into the room, like no consideration at all that I was asleep. And they put their tape on, and like I said, couldn't speak a word of English, but press play on the tape. Girl Like You, Edwyn Collins, they were singing along to it, word perfect. And same with the next, I still remember the next song on the tape, Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash. Okay. And Should I Stay or Should I Go Now? Like this funny kind of straight sort of Spanish accent, but just perfect phonetic English, but they hadn't got a clue what they were singing. And I'm like, there, I'm trying to get some sleep here. Yeah. But there's no point in saying anything, so I just pretend, I'm not a guy to cause a scene, so I just pretend to be asleep.
It's quite interesting seeing that there, because when you think about how Britpop was hailed as this sort of revival of 60s sounds, when you actually listen to a lot of the records, you don't necessarily get that, or at least not in a way that's particularly positive. But when you listen to something like A Girl Like You, that in terms of its production emulates a certain kind of 60s, maybe a kind of Bond filmy kind of vibe that's very effective.
I realised quite recently it's the main part of the song is sampled from 1, 2, 3 by Len Barry. And it's just like dum 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 dum. But instead of it that going into the rest of the song, you just get that kind of on a loop, and it's built on that. So it is a 1960s song.
Yes,
that it's built on.
Yeah.
And I only realised that recently when I played that record. I'm like, hang on a minute.
I've heard that
That's
before.
really interesting. Oh wow.
Could just also just wanting to draw your attention to a couple of things in Pop Bible. On the quiz page, a few questions. And so add the number of hits that Sean Maguire has had to the number of members of Boyzone, divide by the number of times Let Loose's hit Crazy For You had to be released before it was a hit, things like that. Number 6, the question is, exactly how many people are there in You Be Bloody 40? Not only that, bottom of the page, photo clue in the crossword, Hallie Bloody Campbell from You Be Bloody 40.
Oh, yeah. They're still... This is 95
This
now.
is
I mean, we're years on.
1995.
And they're still in it all the bloody time.
Can't get away from You Be
can't.
Bloody 40. A bonkers M&8 hit Bondi Beach. Sylvia Patterson wants to hit M&8.
Would you guys say that this is kind of the most old school smash hits bit of this edition, this M&A interview?
In some ways, yeah, because we've got Sylvia doing it.
Yeah.
I think this and the Jarvis thing kind of
Yes.
captured the spirit. But this is just so weird. It almost doesn't really fit into the old style either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what's going on really, or what, what their behaviour, whether they think that was okay at the time, or whether they were just hyper on their pop success, or is this symptomatic of manufactured boy bands of the mid-1990s? I've got no idea. The piece begins, honey, honey, from Slough to Bondi Beach, Sydney, Australia. The young men of M&8 stand on the shore, swooning with awe at the booming ocean. Except they do nothing of the sort. Instead, they sprint after a beach jogging, bosom boinging honey, while bawling, we're number 10 in the charts here. Can we come back to your house? The answer is no. M&8 are aged between 18 and 21, but they're all actually 7 years old, except sensible details, who make sure their clothes are ironed. They're Britain's top lover boys of snog pop, and now they're about to do it throughout the rest of the globe. They've just flown in from Japan, where they performed in clubs, where the honeys wore braces on their chests and nothing else. Huh? Who told you that? Grins G-Man, the American one. He have the stomach for washing clothes on. They are not homesick. Are you kidding? Nor are they knackered. We love the life too much. Their jaunts around the world are an all-singing, all-dancing snogathon. We pay respect to all the women out there, KG begins, because we all have mothers. Gibber. All the hardships like cleaning houses. Squeak. We give them respect. They've been fighting for centuries for respect from male oppressors. Fair point, the nutter. KG is frankly bonkers. He speaks in breath-free sentences of 3,000 words and makes it all up. He is 18. We're kind of thrown into M&8's world there. I mean, Kat, what did you make of this piece?
I loved it. I thought it was so funny and a really good kind of antidote to the thing that I was describing, because M&8 would have been prime example of someone like when you saw them do I've Got a Little Something For You on Top of the Pops. The performance is so aggressively sort of sexualized. It's like, it's just them sort of ripping off their clothes and, you feel sort of so... And it's not
assaulted.
Yeah, exactly.
Visually assaulted.
It's not that the record is particularly bad or anything. It's just that the way they were marketed was so kind of cynical, and the fact that Sylvia Patterson here kind of takes this tone of kind of poking fun at that element of them is great. It means that you can kind of you can enjoy their records. You can even think that they're cute if you want to as a reader, but you can also make fun of them and have a sense of humour about it, and that's great. It's what you want from Smash Hits.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of enjoyed it. like their attitude is like strange, and I can't really get a handle on what they're doing. Like you said, are they just excited and giddy, or are they just being weird with Sylvia, or are they taking the piss? I don't really quite know, but obviously Sylvia's great. I mean, like in the last issue we looked at with Ian Wade, it was about the Frankie Goes to Hollywood one, and you think this is a lot easier for her to deal with than Matt.
Yeah, but there's something kind of predatory about M&8's attitude and behaviour that I was reading. He was making it really
it's definitely
icky.
a bit off.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that stuff where he's talking about the male oppressors, and then 2 minutes earlier than that, he's chasing some woman in a bikini down the beach. So there's a bit of a something not quite meeting up there, isn't there?
Yeah, not really.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, but they've all got mothers.
Yeah. It's just some weird stuff. Like they're talking about. So later on today, they're going to be going to the Australian launch of Michael Jackson's new LP because they're on the same record label. It says, today Michael isn't turning up because he's at the doctor's or something. But if he does, considers KG, I'm going to ask him if he spilled my pint. Question mark. And none of it makes any sense. Like, what is it?
Yeah, well, it's Sylvia writes here, M&8 are the kind of group that make things up and stick to them. Their stories growing into giant porkies with each passing second. G-Man insists he was born in Australia. KG insists he died and was resurrected this very morning. Cool T pretends he's Beavis and Butthead at all times. They make up entire plots of films that don't exist and weep at mirth at each other's jokes.
It's very bizarre. At the end it says, and with that they're back in the van, swishing off to their working schedule, hooting at the honeys, while overhead the rain begins to spit and a gigantic rainbow arcs above the heaven, a full semicircle, and then another one directly above it. A double rainbow, shrieks G-Man. That never happens, man. See, we told you. We are the holy people.
But then there's that little quote, it's just a bit further up from that. So it's after they're going about spilling Michael Jackson's pint, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Do not be fooled by the breezy bizarreness of Master K. He just may have too many brain cells for his own good. He was best in his class at art and still gave it up because I wasn't good enough. I'm a total perfectionist, a Virgo. Occasionally, he even makes sense. At school, we had this teacher and she was really old and horrible and had these huge big breasts. And then I noticed that all the young and beautiful girls had no breasts at all. Well, that's when I knew that the Lord works in mysterious ways. It's like, what?
It's hard to begin to know where to start unpicking that. Really.
I don't think I want to unpick it.
I think we should leave it unpicked.
Yeah. I think just kind of leave that one hanging there and just walk away from it.
Walk away from M&8's bizarre stink that they've left on the pages. But yeah, an entertaining if slightly disconcerting article, I think that.
Yeah.
Only entertaining because of what Sylvia does, really.
Yes.
I think so.
So another new feature is on the singles page where new for Si and I, singles get marks out of 5, or little black dots out of 5. So Seal, Kiss from a Rose, is single of the week. Lisa Daniels is the reviewer. A bit of a weird sort of perv image at the beginning. She says, imagine smothering your face in honey and having Robbie Williams lick it off. Pure heaven, eh? I'm not sure that is heavenly by anyone's definition. Even if you fancied Robbie Williams, someone licking honey off your face, is that a thing? I don't know. Yeah, anyway. But yeah, good tune, and I think a deserved single of the week. Also favourable reviews for All Right by Supergrass, which I remember very clearly from the time Chris Evans used to play that a lot in his radio show in the mornings. The aforementioned It's Lulu by Boo Radleys, aforementioned a few times now. And Happy by the wonderful M&8, all get decent reviews. 0 points, 0 point, for All for Ones, I Can Love You Like That, and Cyndi Lauper's Come On Home, which, having played the video today and listened to it, I can totally understand why they got 0 points. What would you have been listening to there, Kat? Or is there any particular reviews you enjoyed or things you disagree with?
I think she does quite a good job there, doesn't she? Of sort of
I think so.
Spotting the things that we're going to be hearing for a long time. Like the Kiss from a Rose shouts is, did you hear that apparently he wasn't going to put that song on his album, but it was Trevor Horn that said, maybe you should, that sort of folky one that you played me, maybe you should stick that on the... And so he very nearly didn't include that. He thought it was too rubbish, which is amazing. Shows how good Trevor Horn is at spotting these things. And yeah, Supergrass, all right. I mean, I think at the time I found that kind of... or at least I began to find it kind of grating and sort of encapsulated as a kind of feeling of self-satisfaction of that kind of Britpop era. But I do understand sort of retrospectively when you hear it, you think, oh, well, that's obviously a good single and one that people will continue to play. I don't know if you guys have seen Clueless. It's used to great effect in Clueless.
No, I don't think so.
And in that, it's used in a montage and goes along with the idea of, these Californian rich kids kind of having a great time. And it's quite funny when you put something from the Britpop era in a film like that. It kind of works brilliantly when it's put in that context. And I thought that her review of You Do Something... does it say You Do Something For Me? It does, doesn't it?
Oh,
Whereas,
Paul Weller.
Yeah, but that's You Do Something To Me, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
But I thought that was quite harsh because I think that's quite a good record, actually.
Yeah, I watched the video of that today, and it was kind of like a bit of a sort of Small Faces Traffic kind of vibe to it. But yeah. It was all right. I think Lisa thinks it's quite dull. What did she say? It just sounds dead boring and nothing like the so-called genius he's supposed to be.
But the song that I was most surprised by liking now, listening back to these, was Method Man and Mary J. Blige. That was really good.
I'd forgotten that record, and when I played it again, I was like, oh yeah, this is great.
I have no recollection of it.
Right.
I'll Be There / You're All I Need to Get By, a love song in a rap style that doesn't refer to women as female dogs or gardening tools. See, it can be done. The Method Man raps about how much he loves his girl, but he does it in a hard, non-wussy way. Yeah, sure, he'll tell all and sundry about how fine his woman is, but he'll do it with a cool rap sneer in his voice. Okay. Mary J. Blige softened things up when she sings her bit. Highly enjoyable. It was really good. That one really caught my ear when I was listening through to the playlist.
One that I really loved at the time was Love Enough by Soul to Soul, which does get 5 stars, which is great. Because at the time, I really loved that. And the Batman Forever soundtrack doesn't do too well on the reviews. They say that Massive Attack and PJ Harvey turn up to save things. And the Massive Attack song that's on that is a version of The Hunter Gets Captured by the Game with Tracy Thorn on vocals, which is really fantastic. And it's also got one of my preferred U2 singles on it, which is Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me. Yeah. I think that's one of the better U2 singles, although that's maybe a bit of an unfashionable opinion.
No, I like that one. Yeah, I'd not heard that for a while.
Yeah.
Again, all available on the video playlist.
Yeah.
So point yourself to that if you can.
He was quite good at doing it because he did. Bono did the GoldenEye Bond track. Was it this year or might have been the year before?
It's around about that time, and they did In the Name of the Father as well, which was
he's sort of
mid-90s.
he's kind of better when he's doing that than some of the more sort of stadium-y.
Yes.
Yeah.
When he's preaching.
Yeah.
We don't like Bono preaching.
So on the albums, as Kat said, we've got the Batman Forever, which gets 2 stars out of 5. Judy Cheeks, Respect, also 2, and I suppose the album of the month, but kind of not with a great score of 3 out of 5, is Bitty McLean, Natural High. Not one to have it large, Bitty has, in his inimitably small way, created another album of sparkly pop reggae that speaks of things sugary, frothy, sugary, frothy and summery. And indeed, all the songs on it do give you an instant sugar-coated natural high. Imagine you just slurped a Pepsi Max, gobbled a whole sherbet dib-dab, and then had a go on the swings, and you're there, basically. But you know how your sherbet goes a bit quaggy and sickly at the end of the tube, and you just can't face any more? And that's the best album of the 3, so
Okay, not a good week for albums.
And then we get Banging Tunes don't we? You talked about Saltersol getting 5 stars for Love Enough. It's this issue on the Wheels of Steel DJ stand. So I think this is like a little, almost like a bit of a throwback to Bev Hilliers' column.
Yeah.
But like a reduced thing, just a few short record reviews for some dance tunes. So Sister Bliss, Oh What a World, Junior Vasquez, Get Your Hands Off My Man, gets 4 stars. Soul to Soul 5, Love Enough, and Glowworm, Young Hearts gets 4. That's the first time I've ever seen banging tunes in here either. Another new feature, so many new features coming out us thick and fast.
I know.
I'm exhausted by the new features.
Skipping on a few pages, we come to a couple of pages on Blur's summer gig at the Mile End Stadium in that London. Evening, boys and girls. And with that, the gig of the century kicked off. And King of Indie Mark Sutherland witnessed it all. What's the score then, matey? The score is, without doubt, the biggest pop gig of the year. 17,000 screaming fans, 6 bands, and a lot of drizzle. Not much of a day out then. Au contraire. Somehow everyone's having so much fun the dreadful weather doesn't matter. The day starts at noon and Blur aren't on until 8:45 p.m. But there's plenty to keep everyone amused. Going bonkers to Dodgy and the Boo Radleys, mobbing Jarvis Cocker. And a couple of you even asked me for my autograph. You crazy kid.
Oh my God. He's like a cool supply teacher, isn't he? You know, with his jacket sleeves rolled up. And,
but gets a photo of the Mile End Stadium guest pass in there that he's obviously been given. Yeah, Saturday, 17th of June. I remember this being broadcast live on Radio 1. And I probably still got a C90 of it somewhere. And then when the Country House single came out the following month, there was the normal studio version, then was a live at Mile End EP version,
right.
So 4 tracks live from the gig. So it was the first time they played tracks from The Great Escape, wasn't it? The album that came out that year. So they played a few tracks from there, and that was then being premiered.
So were you a big Blur fan?
I was at the time, because they were the first band that I went to see of my own accord. Because I've been to a few gigs, with my older brothers and my sister, been to see Eric Clapton and David Bowie. And then not long after I'd started college, so just after my 17th birthday, me and my mate who'd seen the video or a snippet of the video for She's So High, Blur's first single, on Jukebox Jury.
Wow, brilliant.
Which I think was being presented by Jules Holland at that point. And he'd spotted that they were playing at the Students' Union at Sheffield University. So, do you fancy going to that? I was like, hey, let's go to that. I didn't know who they were. I had no clue. It was, I think, a couple of weeks before the single was actually released, so they'd not put anything out at that point. So I went down into the Student Union bar, and the stage was just basically some boards on some beer crates. I was a little bit scared because it was a university, and I'd faked my date of birth on my student union card so I could get into 18 plus events. So I was underage for a start. And, and the image that I've got is that all these students wandering around, they all kind of look like Robert Smith, really. He's sort of like, back-combed hair and long cardigans and stuff like that. I'm sure they didn't all look like that, but that's kind of what I remember. The first thing Damon said when they came on stage before they started playing anything was, "We're not from Manchester," and then went into "There's No Other Way." And I just loved them from that moment. I'm not so keen on them now. They do me head in now. But in the 90s, I was very much into the Blurs.
Oh, so they do your head in now? That's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Just can't put my finger on it, but and there's still a few songs that I like. But I guess it's it seems something a little disingenuous about them. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
And this is coming from a David Bowie fan who kind of changed styles, jumped around, but he didn't kind of pretend to be anything other than this is what I'm doing now. David Bowie, whereas Blur, I think, tried to present themselves as like real Cockney boys sort of thing.
Yes.
And I think it was kind of all a bit kind of cosplaying for them, but they were kind of making out as though it was real.
Yes.
And I think that might be where I kind of like just a bit like it doesn't
I
sit
totally
quite
agree
right
with you
now.
on that. I completely agree.
Yeah, but undoubtedly some great songs.
Yeah. It's so interesting that the Boo Radleys get a mention in this as well. I think that's the 4th time in this edition that the Boo Radleys have been name-checked. They were clearly being very charming behind the scenes.
About Blur for you, Gav?
Yeah, I was a fan. I didn't like that first album so much because it felt like they were kind of riding on the coattails of the baggy thing and all that.
Yeah.
But I really liked the singles and I had the album, Modern Life is Rubbish, like For Tomorrow and Chemical World.
For Tomorrow is great.
Brilliant, really good. And that really was again, we were talking about like the really early days of Britpop before it became Britpop, but that idea of like an English, like a bit of a line coming through from like Small Faces and Kinks and the Beatles.
David Bowie as well.
And Bowie as well, yeah. And that album I thought was really good at kind of bringing some of those things together, but in a contemporary way,
Yeah.
So that was great. And then Part Life I really loved as an album as well. And the singles were great. I know, Girls and Boys, you start to get a bit sick of it after a while because you just heard it everywhere. But it wasn't just a big bouncy pop song that was good at the student discos and, So yeah, I was definitely more Team Blur than Team Oasis for sure. But I never totally, because, I was in my mid-20s by then, so I was kind of, wasn't heavily invested, but I did like them. I think I had a T-shirt and,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember a record called Blurred by Piano Man that was out around this time.
No.
Which is just a sort of house track with boys and girls just chopped up.
Okay.
And I really like that. Really loved it at the time. Still like it. So it sort of makes me a bad Britpop fan, I think. It's like, I like it when they turn into cheesy dance music.
Yeah. Well, I think that, they did lots of like club mixes of boys and girls anyway, didn't they? So,
yeah, that kind of thing.
So they knew where it was at. Yeah, I think the sort of Blur that I don't like is what's coming up on The Great Escape. So a song like Charmless Man.
Yeah.
Which I find that song just intolerable, and that seemed to kind of be more of a growing thing in what they were doing for a couple of years after that. So that was the side of things that I didn't like, and that's what started putting me off them. These sort of slightly sneering character studies, but just too cynical. I think.
Yes, for pop songs, when you think of so many of the great pop songs, they felt a little bit at that point kind of anti-emotional or something. It was almost as if they thought, like, no, we're kind of too cool. We've gone past the point of writing about, love or sex or anything human and vulnerable. We're kind of, as you say, going to go into the arena of caricature and cynicism to such a point where I think it makes those records sort of less easy to revisit because it just feels
that's a really good point. Yeah, I'd never thought of that. That kind of, like I say, taking the humanity and the soul out of things and just being like quite mean, and mean-spirited.
Completely,
yeah. Because the interesting thing, just to go back to Pulp again, there we were talking about sort of cynicism in the music and that feeling of being jaded. But when they did that with like This Is Hardcore, it was still very personal and about like his own lived experience as a celebrity.
Yeah, I mean that's quite a harrowing song.
It's a harrowing listen.
It's
a great, really underrated album. I think it's a great album. But the target isn't anyone else. It's about I've been through this and it was pretty horrible.
Yes,
you know. And that's the difference, I think, isn't it? Again, it's got that humanity at the core of it.
Yeah.
I don't want it to get too poncy and arty-farty about all this.
No, absolutely. No, I mean, I think the Smiths did that really well. There was a lot of, there could be cynicism in those records, and yet there was sort of embedded in something that always felt pretty emotional in it. In its own way, kind of poignant, had a...
So going back to the piece, we went on a bit of a diversion there, didn't we? Mark Sutherland has made sure that he's got the after show party in there, that he's been to that. It's held in a dodgy town hall type place in Bethnal Green. There are 1,000 mates of Blur in attendance. Menswear and Dodgy are here, thoroughly sloshed. Marty from the Boo Radleys, there they are again, is moaning, "We were rubbish today." He's lying. Jarvis Cocker is sozzled and insists. Everyone calls him Jarvie. But at the running across the bottom of the 2 pages of the piece, just a few comments from the people who were there. Mel Harris, aged 17, from London. Number of times seen Blur before? 5. I've been a fan since She's So High, their very first single. Favourite Blur song, Pop Scene. That's what all the true fans say. Favourite member, Dave. He's the funniest and the least pop starry. A good day, yeah, Blur are great, but I do wonder if they're so popular just because everyone fancies Damon. There's somebody from Iceland who's come to see them. And there's Catrin Lowe, aged 16, from Northampton. Number of times seen Blur before? None, but I wish I had. They're fantastic. Favourite Blur song? Girls and Boys. I went mad to that one. Favourite member? Alex, because he's got lovely dark hair and lovely eyes. Have you had a good day? It's been wonderful, apart from the fact that I can't find my friends. I'm just like, oh. I hope she found her friends and got home okay. I think that's the parent in me now.
If you're out there, Catrin, let us know if you're okay. We're still worried about you 30-odd years later.
I want closure on that story.
Yeah, do get in touch. We're almost at the end of the magazine. We're promised in the next Smash Hits to get 4 star masks. Steve from Boyzone is represented by a monkey mask. Bit of a running joke through the magazine. Pamela Anderson, Mark Owen and Batman masks can be yours. Plus, I snogged a start, your amazing stories. It's definitely getting very Take a Break or magazine for sure. And then the final feature that we come across is Ultimate Kaos, and we are with Hayden, who's 13 at the time. He says that he thinks he could beat Prince in a fight, and he claims that he French kissed a Chinese girl when he was 4 years old, which isn't great. Emma Cochran asks him, don't you think you're a bit young to sing and dance in a perv-like fashion? He says, nah, it's fun, singing all these songs, having the girls looking at you. One girl wrote and said she'd like to put Jan on Jomo and lick it off. They write stuff like that to me, but Mum doesn't know about those letters. It's all a bit too sexy.
Yeah,
for my liking.
13-year-old.
Yeah. Can you handle it? Could you handle it, Kat? Ultimate Kaos? You had the cassette single.
I had the cassette single. I saw them in real. I would have said that they were one of the better manufactured boy bands, just in the sense that their dance routines and their songs like Hoochie Booty I remember that one. It was like it's perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine. There we are.
Good clean fun.
4 out of 5.
I think were they either a Simon Cowell or a Simon Fuller band?
Simon Cowell.
Simon Cowell. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have an awful lot. It's quite a small article, isn't it? It's just a page of a few questions, almost like a personal file type thing. She asks, are you worried what will happen when your voice breaks? Huskily, it's breaking now. Sounds sad. It's making it harder to sing, so that's why I'm having to go to singing lessons every 2 weeks. I can still sing quite high, laughs. It's really quite scary, but I'll be okay. So, and anything there, Si, that you wish to comment on, or
you read out the thing that I was going to comment on. So.
Oh right, okay. And that brings us to the end of the magazine. So, Kat, thank you for bringing it to us. What has it been like looking back through that issue again? Has it brought back many, many memories?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It really has brought back memories. I think that it's a interesting period to revisit because of the Oasis reunion. We've all been talking a lot about Britpop lately. And I think you guys have been saying that when you dip into something like an edition of Smash Hits from the time, you get shown that was just one aspect of pop culture, and that there was actually quite a lot of other stuff going on that was popular with young people. So, but it's, as we were saying, it's also really nice to see Jarvis Cocker and Vic and Bob take centre stage in this issue, because I think that they're the kind of artists that would be really lovely if we had more of them around now. These people that just weren't afraid to come across as very, very weird.
Yeah.
And it really paid off. They've given us so much that's been enriching to the culture in this country, I think, and that's a lovely thing to think back on and feel positively about the 90s. So
Yeah.
have you guys been, okay with doing this 90s issue? I knew it was hard as a prospect.
It was hard. I mean, listening to the playlist was hard. I was like, what have we agreed to here? Oh my God. But actually, and reading through the mag it was different. Obviously we used to looking at the 80s ones. And you do get the sense that by this point, they've narrowed their field.
Yeah.
So it's not as wide ranging in the music that they cover. It's very, the pop that they do cover is very, from a very narrow field. And there's only kind of Jarvis Cocker and the Boo Radleys that are from the outside of that, but they're already, I guess, relatively well known at that point. And that width has been replaced by gossip and showbiz, which I can understand why it's in there, thinking back to that time. But I'm a bit annoyed that it's in there because I want it to be more about music.
Yes.
So I think what would have Smash Hits in the 90s been like had it still kind of got that wide remit? But I think by this point they were second guessing themselves that had been focus groups, in meetings and all that kind of thing. So deciding what do our audience want, and that does because when they start getting into conversations like that, they'll just do what is popular.
Yeah,
and we'll just follow,
and they'll just follow. So then instead of them, in the 80s, taking a chance on someone, or maybe in some cases, they were definitely leaders in their field, Smash Hits, in terms of how they wrote, but also sometimes the people that they covered. But by the time you get to this point, they're not leading, they're following now.
Yeah,
and they're just trying to chase. They're trying to chase the sales, and you see things like, a phone number for, a phone line for this, and a phone line you're calling for this. And again, it's all a way that they can make money out of their readers. If the sales figures weren't as big as they were in the late 80s, then how else are they going to get money out of them? And it feels very, very advert heavy as well.
Yeah.
So I think the cynic in me can see sort of that peek behind the curtain and what would have been happening industry wise. But no, I think there's still at the core, Smash Hits is still there. It's still recognisable. But it's kind of got these other things that have been bolted onto it, or things that have just been modified a little bit, which is going to happen. If it had been exactly the same as it was in the 80s, that would have been wrong.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well made. Yeah, you can't keep it the same forever. But yeah, I think for me, like you were saying, just that sadness that there isn't more music in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does feel like there's so many conflicting things kind of coming in. And just the layout of it as well, I found a bit overwhelming. There's just so many pictures, and it's hard to know where things fit, and it's just like,
it's hard to know at points what's adverts, what's content, what's advertorial.
And you've got like features like the Batman merchandise. Is that an article, or is that an advertorial, or is it an advert? It's like everything's a lot more blurred in that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, really interesting, and actually a lot culturally to talk about, I think, and particularly like comparing it to the 80s and then looking at, a decade on, what was it like? And it's really interesting to see how it's changed and the direction it's moved in.
Yeah, I wonder what it'd be like looking on from 2005.
Oh my Lord! Don't put that idea in anyone's head.
Yeah, and it's the penultimate year of existence. I mean, I think there'd be even less chance of me recognising anybody in there. At least I still remembered some of the names from this one.
But thank you for being a lovely guide and taking us through it and helping these confused old men
my absolute
to
pleasure.
make sense of it. It's been really good.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure to be on. Thank you so much, both of you.
So it is time to say goodbye, but thanks to you all for listening. Don't forget to check out our website, giddypoppod.home.blog, where you'll find the links to this issue of Smash Hits that we've been looking at, along with those Spotify and YouTube playlists, so you can enjoy your ride on the carousel to its fullest, if you dare. And of course, you can check out our previous episodes, playlists and scans, our back issues, if you will, while you're there.
And if you want to support us by buying us a coffee, then you know what to do. Go to coffee.com/GiddyPopPod. That's ko-fi.com Facebook.com/Giddy Pop Pod. If you feel moved enough to leave us a review, then please do, and come and say hello to us, and we'll say hello back at Giddy Pop Pod on all the socials.
So thanks once again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Giddy Carousel of Pop. Bye!